The title of our journey today is The Entire Story of Walter White, To Fall Asleep To. We are about to embark on a massive 10-part odyssey through the rise and fall of the most legendary anti-hero in television history. But we are going to do it with a twist, diving deep into the mind-blowing secrets, the insane behind-the-scenes facts, and the hidden details that make this show a masterpiece. So, get comfortable, close your eyes if you wish, and let us transport ourselves back to the scorching heat of Albuquerque, New Mexico. It all begins with a pair of trousers flying through the air. It is one of the most iconic opening shots in history. A pair of beige khakis tumbling against a stark blue sky, eventually getting run over by a recreational vehicle that is careening out of control. This is our hook, the moment that grabbed millions of viewers and refused to let go. But did you know that this specific shot was a nightmare to film? Vince Gilligan, the genius creator, wanted those pants to fly off the RV side mirror and land perfectly in the road, but the physics just were not cooperating. They tried again and again, rigging lines, using wind machines, but it felt impossible until, in one miraculous take, the pants flew off and landed exactly where they needed to be. It is a crazy example of practical effects magic that set the tone for the raw, gritty realism we were about to experience. Inside that RV, we meet Walter White, but not the Heisenberg we will come to fear. This is Walt in his rawest state, wearing nothing but those tighty-whities and a gas mask, driving for his life with two bodies sliding around in the back. It is chaotic, it is intense, and it screams desperation. Before we find out how he got there, the story snaps us back to 3 weeks earlier. We see a man who is a ghost in his own life. Walter White is turning 50 years old, and the universe seems determined to mock him. He is an overqualified high school chemistry teacher, watching his students drift into daydreams while he talks passionately about chemical bonds. He works a second job at a car wash, where he is humiliated by having to scrub the wheels of a Corvette belonging to one of his own rude students. The disrespect is palpable. There is a theory among fans that the color palette here is essential to understanding Walt's psyche. In the beginning, everything around Walt is drab, beige, and washed out. He blends into the background. He is invisible. But notice the mustard stain on his shirt during his ride-along with his brother-in-law, Hank Schrader. That splash of yellow is a precursor to the danger and the meth cooking that will soon consume his life. Speaking of Hank, the dynamic at the birthday party is crucial. We see Hank, the alpha male DEA agent, holding court, making jokes, and essentially emasculating Walt in his own home. It is subtle, but it is the fuel for the fire. Walt is not just broke. He is broken. He feels powerless. Then comes the catalyst, the diagnosis. It is a moment of pure cinematic genius. When the doctor tells Walt he has inoperable lung cancer, the sound drops out. We hear a high-pitched ringing, simulating the shock, the dissociation. Walt is not listening to the prognosis. He is staring at a mustard stain on the doctor's coat. It is such a human, bizarre detail. Instead of contemplating his mortality, he is fixated on a trivial mess. This is the moment the sleeping dragon wakes up. He has played by the rules his whole life, and what did it get him? A death sentence and a mountain of debt. The what-if scenario here is fascinating to consider. If Walt had never seen that news report about the millions of dollars seized in a meth bust during his birthday party, would he have just withered away? Probably. But that curiosity, that desire to leave something behind for his family, specifically the number $737,000, drives him to reach out to a former student. Enter Jesse Pinkman, The casting of Aaron Paul is one of those thank the TV gods moments. Initially, Jesse was supposed to die at the end of season 1. Can you imagine? The show was meant to be Walt seeking revenge for his student's death, spiraling darker on his own. But the chemistry, pun intended, between Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul was so electric, so undeniable, that Vince Gilligan changed the entire trajectory of the series to keep him. When Walt finds Jesse, he is escaping a bust at the Captain Cook residence, tumbling out of a window and landing face first in the dirt. It is tragic and hilarious. Walt blackmails him, not for money, but for an entry ticket into the underworld. You know the business, and I know the chemistry. It is the legendary pitch that starts it all. They take that old, beat-up RV, which is actually a 1986 Fleetwood Bounder, out into the Tohaj-Ili Indian Reservation. Fun fact, this location is visually stunning, looking like a classic Western, which is intentional. Breaking Bad is, at its heart, a modern Western. The lawless frontier, the outlaws, the standoffs. It is all there. When they start their first cook, we get our first taste of the science. Now, the show had actual DEA chemists as consultants to tell them exactly how to cook meth. But then, the writers deliberately changed steps in the script so that no one watching at home could actually replicate the recipe. That is a responsible touch in a show about manufacturing narcotics. Walt strips down to his underwear to keep the smell off his clothes, a logical but absurd image that defines the pilot. The product they produce is glass grade. It is pure art. Jesse is stunned. He calls it glass, completely blown away by the clarity. This is the first time in years, maybe decades, that Walt feels pride. He is the best at something. It is an ego trip that he will chase for the rest of his life. But the celebration is short-lived. Emilio and Crazy 8 show up, and things go south immediately. This leads to the phosphine gas moment. It is a brilliant display of weaponized chemistry. Walt knows he cannot win a gunfight, so he uses his brain. He creates a chemical reaction that generates a deadly gas, trapping the dealers in the RV. It is the first kill, or so he thinks. This brings us back to the opening scene, the chaos, the crash, and Walt recording that video for his family. My name is Walter Hartwell White. It is a confession, but also a suicide note. He stands on the road, gun in hand, hearing sirens. He puts the gun under his chin and pulls the trigger. Click. The safety is on. Then he hears the sirens getting closer, points the gun at the oncoming noise, ready to go out in a blaze of glory. But it is not the cops. It is fire trucks responding to a different emergency. He is alive. He is free. And he has a van full of meth and bodies. The relief and the absurdity of that moment perfectly encapsulate the show's dark humor. He survives the pilot, but the real darkness is just beginning. The aftermath of the pilot is where the show really digs its claws in. Walt and Jesse have to deal with the mess. They have the RV in Jesse's driveway, which leads to the introduction of the cow house line, a fan-favorite bit of dialogue where Jesse questions where they are going to work. But the real horror is discovering that Crazy 8 is still alive. This sets up one of the most intense psychological dramas of the first season. They flip a coin to see who does what. Jesse has to dissolve Emilio's body, and Walt has to kill Crazy 8. The dissolving of the body leads to the infamous bathtub scene. It is grotesque, it is shocking, and it is scientifically accurate in a terrifying way. Hydrofluoric acid eats through ceramic. Jesse ignores Walt's instructions to use a plastic bin, and the result is a ceiling collapsing with visceral, bloody sludge. It is a wake-up call for the audience. This is not a glamorous crime show. It is messy, disgusting, and traumatizing. Meanwhile, Walt is bonding with Crazy 8 in the basement. This is a crucial sequence. Walt does not want to be a killer. He makes a sandwich for his captive, cuts the crusts off, just like he does for himself. He talks to him. They discover they have a connection through Crazy 8's father, who owns a furniture store where Walt bought a crib for Walter Jr. It is a heartbreaking, small world moment that humanizes the enemy. Walt actually writes a list of pros and cons on a notepad about whether to let him go. The only con is he will kill your entire family. The turning point comes with the missing plate shard. Walt collapses, shatters the plate, and cleans it up. But when he reassembles the pieces in the trash, there is a piece missing shaped like a dagger. The realization on Bryan Cranston's face is legendary acting. He realizes that kindness is a weakness in this world. He goes back down, confronts Crazy 8, and discovers the shard hidden behind him. The strangulation scene with the bike lock is brutal. It is intimate, slow, and devastating. Walt is crying, saying, "I'm sorry," while he takes a life. This is the death of Walter White, the teacher, and the birth of something harder, colder. Behind the scenes, this scene took a massive toll on Bryan Cranston. He has said in interviews that he pictured his own daughter's face during the struggle, which is why his weeping feels so real. He was genuinely disturbed by what his character had to do. It is that level of commitment that elevates this show above everything else. While all this darkness is unfolding, Walt is trying to maintain the facade of a normal life. He is dealing with the side effects of chemotherapy, the nausea, the hair loss. The hair loss leads to another iconic look, the shaved head. When Walt takes the razor to his own head, it is not just about cancer, it is a transformation. He is shedding his old self. He looks in the mirror and sees a stranger, someone tougher. This visual change is brilliant because it aligns perfectly with his descent into the criminal underworld. He is looking less like a victim and more like a villain. Simultaneously, the financial pressure is mounting. The $737,000 figure is burned into his brain. He needs to sell the meth they cooked. This leads to the introduction of Tuco Salamanca. Now, Tuco is a character that screams insane energy. Raymond Cruz, the actor, brought such an intensity to the role that he actually asked to be written out of the show later because playing Tuco was physically and mentally exhausting. He was giving 110% in every scene. Jesse tries to sell to Tuco and gets beaten to a pulp, landing in the hospital. This is the moment Walt has to step up. He cannot hide behind Jesse anymore. Walt goes to Tuco's headquarters. He introduces himself as Heisenberg for the first time. The name comes from Werner Heisenberg, the physicist famous for the uncertainty principle, which is a perfect metaphor for Walt's life. You can know where he is or where he is going, but never both. He walks into the lion's den holding a bag of what looks like meth. Tuco mocks him, laughs at this high school teacher. But Walt is not holding meth. He is holding fulminated mercury. This is not meth. He throws a single crystal on the floor, and the explosion blows out the windows and knocks everyone off their feet. It is an epic, fist-pumping moment. It is science triumphing over brute force. He walks out with the money, getting in his car, and his adrenaline is spiking so hard he screams and punches the steering wheel. He is high on the power. He's not just surviving anymore. He's winning. This is the hook that locks us in for the long haul. We are rooting for a man who just blew up a building to sell drugs, and we love it. But let us pause And look at the family dynamic again. Skylar White often gets a bad rap from fans. But if you look at the facts, she is a pregnant woman dealing with a distant, lying husband who has cancer. Anna Gunn's performance is layered with suspicion and fear. She knows something is wrong. She just does not know what. The writers planted seeds of her investigative skills early on. She traces the call. She questions Jesse. She is the antagonist to Walt's secret, and the tension in the White household is just as thick as the tension in the drug deals. Then there is Elliot and Gretchen Schwartz, the billionaires of gray matter technologies. This backstory is the ghost that haunts Walt. He helped start the company, came up with the name White plus Schwartz, which means black in German, makes gray, and then sold his share for $5,000 due to personal pride and a breakup. Now, the company is worth billions. When they offer to pay for his treatment, he refuses. This is a critical revelation. Walt's journey is not just about family, it is about pride. It is about regret. He would rather cook meth and risk death than take charity from the people he feels stole his destiny. That bitter resentment is the engine of the Heisenberg train. As we wrap up the first chapter of this saga, we leave Walt in a precarious position. He has made a deal with a psychopath in Tuco. He has a brother-in-law in the DEA who is actively hunting for the new player in town. He has a partner in Jesse who is traumatized and erratic. And he has a secret that is a ticking time bomb in his marriage. The blue meth has hit the streets, and the consequences are rippling out. We have only scratched the surface. We have not even met the lawyer, the chicken man, or the fixer yet. The world of Breaking Bad is about to expand in ways that Walt could never predict. The tragedy is in motion. He thinks he is in control, but as we will see, control is an illusion. The chemistry must be respected, and the reaction has only just begun. So, take a deep breath. Let the image of that exploding office linger in your mind, and prepare yourself. The descent is steep, and the next steps are going to be slippery. I have told you about the pants, the coin flip, the bike lock, and the explosion, but do you know about the turtle? Do you know about the fugue state? Or the teddy bear in the pool? The intricate web of foreshadowing that Vince Gilligan wove into Season 2 is mind-blowing. And we are going to unravel every single thread. The journey of Walter White is a study in transformation, and we are witnessing the chrysalis break open. The monster is emerging, and he is fascinating to watch. The image of a charred pink teddy bear floating face down in a swimming pool is one of the most haunting and puzzling visuals in television history. Welcome to the second chapter of our deep dive into the saga of Walter White, where we explore the season of consequences, the butterfly effect, and the moment the universe decided to punish Albuquerque for Walt's sins. Season 2 begins not with a bang, but with a mystery. Throughout the season, we are treated to these black and white flash forwards, punctuated only by the stark, vibrant pink of that damaged bear. It is an artistic choice that drove fans insane with speculation while the show was airing. What did it mean? Was it a meth lab explosion? Was it a cartel attack? The truth, as we would find out, was far more devastating and bizarre, connecting directly to the hubris of our protagonist. But before we get to the sky falling, we have to deal with the immediate threat on the ground, Tuco Salamanca. We left Walt and Jesse in a state of panic, and that panic leads them to be kidnapped and taken to a remote desert shack. This brings us to the introduction of one of the most legendary characters in the Breaking Bad universe, Hector Tio Salamanca, played by the brilliant Mark Margolis. This character has no lines of dialogue, only a brass service bell dinging on his wheelchair. It is a masterclass in acting. Margolis conveys pure, unadulterated hate and intelligence just through his eyes and the furious ringing of that bell. The tension in that shack is suffocating. Tuco is cooking, snorting meth, and ranting, while Walt tries to poison his burrito with ricin, a toxin derived from castor beans. It is another example of Walt using chemistry as a weapon. The what-if here is terrifying. If Tio had not been sharp as a tack, noticing the switch and dinging to warn his nephew, Tuco might have eaten that burrito, and the show would have taken a completely different turn. Instead, we get a brutal confrontation. The escape from Tuco's shack leads to a pivotal moment for Hank Schrader. Hank tracks Jesse's car via LoJack, thinking he is just finding a delinquent pothead, but instead stumbles into a shootout with a maniacal drug lord. The gunfight is messy and realistic. Hank isn't an action hero here. He's a terrified cop fighting for his life. When he kills Tuco, it is not a triumphant moment. It is traumatic. This event triggers Hank's PTSD, which becomes a major subplot. It is a brilliant move by the writers to show that violence has lasting psychological effects on the good guys, too. Meanwhile, Walt and Jesse are stranded in the desert, watching the chaos from a distance, realizing they have escaped death by inches. But now, Walt has a problem. He has been missing for days. He cannot just walk back into his house. So, he concocts the fugue state lie. This is where we see the sociopathic ability of Walter White to deceive his family begin to solidify. He strips naked in a grocery store, walking through the aisles in a dazed state to fake amnesia. It is cringe-inducing, deeply uncomfortable, and genius. He is committed to the lie. When he is hospitalized, he sticks to the story, but the cracks are starting to show. Skyler is not buying it completely. The second cell phone theory is born here. She heard him. She knows. The domestic thriller aspect of the show ramps up, creating a claustrophobic atmosphere that rivals the drug trade scenes. With Tuco gone, there is a power vacuum, and Walt decides they need to fill it. But they need a structure. Enter the criminal lawyer, Saul Goodman. The introduction of Bob Odenkirk changes the DNA of the show. Originally, the character was only supposed to appear in a few episodes, but Odenkirk brought such a layer of sleazy charisma and essential comic relief that he became indispensable. Saul is the bridge between the amateur hour of Walt and Jesse and the professional, high-stakes world of the cartels. His office is a masterpiece of set design, the Constitution wallpaper, the inflatable Statue of Liberty, the drawer full of burner phones. It screams corner-cutting. Saul is the one who introduces the concept of money laundering, in a way the audience can understand, famously using the analogy of a nail salon. You need a Danny. He also introduces them to Mike Ehrmantraut, the cleaner. Jonathan Banks plays Mike with a world-weary gravitas that balances out Saul's manic energy. Mike is the guy who knows how to clean up a death, foreshadowing the darkness that will eventually consume them all. The casting of these two created a universe so rich, it spawned its own spin-off, Better Call Saul, which is a testament to the writing strength of this season. As they try to expand, we get one of the most heartbreaking episodes of the entire series. Peekaboo. Jesse goes to collect money from a pair of junkies who ripped off one of his dealers. What he finds is a house of horrors and a neglected little boy. This episode is crucial for understanding Jesse Pinkman. He is a criminal, yes, but he has a profound soft spot for children. He plays peekaboo with the kid, feeds him, and protects him from the squalor. When the ATM machine crushing incident happens, a visceral, crazy moment of poetic justice where the junkie husband is killed by his own greed and a stolen ATM. Jesse's first instinct is to get the kid to safety. He calls 911 and leaves the line open, telling the kid to have a nice life. It is tragic. It solidifies Jesse as the moral compass of the show, the tragic figure who is being corrupted by Walt's ambition. While Walt is hardening, Jesse is suffering. The duality is fascinating. The season also gives us the legendary 4 Days Out episode. This is a bottle episode, essentially, where Walt and Jesse are stranded in the desert in the RV with a dead battery. It is a masterclass in tension and character building. Walt thinks his cancer has spread, and he is dying immediately. So he wants to cook the entire barrel of methylamine to leave his family a massive pile of cash. The frenzy leads to a mistake, leaving the keys in the ignition, draining the battery. We see them at their lowest, dehydrated, desperate, and dying. This leads to the iconic science bitch sentiment. Though Jesse doesn't say that exact phrase here, he says, "Yeah, Mr. White. Yeah, science," earlier. Walt builds a battery out of coins, galvanized metal, and sponges. It is MacGyver meets meth. The moment the RV engine coughs to life is pure euphoria. It bonds them. They are survivors. But the irony hits hard when Walt gets back and finds out his tumor has shrunk by 80%. He is in remission. Instead of being happy, he is angry. He punches the paper towel dispenser in the bathroom until it is dented. Why? Because he was ready to die. He had an exit strategy. Now he has to live with the consequences of his actions. He has to live the lie. This remission leads to a shift in Walt's motivation. He is no longer cooking out of necessity. He is cooking because he likes it. He is good at it. This is perfectly encapsulated in the "stay out of my territory" scene. Walt sees a couple of amateur cooks buying supplies in a hardware store. He gives them advice, then realizes what he is doing. He follows them outside, stares them down with that dead-eyed Heisenberg glare, and delivers the line. The use of the song DLZ by TV on the radio in the background makes this one of the coolest, most menacing scenes in television history. The teacher is gone. The kingpin has arrived. But the emotional core of Season 2 is the introduction of Jane Margolis, played by Kristen Ritter. Jane is the landlord and eventual girlfriend of Jesse. She is sharp, artistic, and a recovering addict. Her relationship with Jesse is sweet at first. They share a love for art and a cynical view of the world. She represents a way out for Jesse, a life beyond Walt. But she also represents a massive threat to Walt. When she relapses and drags Jesse down into heroin addiction with her, the dynamic shifts dangerously. The scene where they try heroin for the first time is floaty and disturbing. It shows how easily Jesse can be influenced. When Jane finds out about the money Walt owes Jesse, nearly $500,000, she blackmails Walt. She becomes the villain in Walt's eyes, not because she is evil, but because she threatens his control over Jesse. This leads to the most controversial and pivotal moment in Walter White's development, the death of Jane. Walt goes to Jesse's apartment to try and reconcile, but he finds them passed out in a heroin stupor. In the process of trying to wake Jesse, he accidentally knocks Jane onto her back. She starts to vomit in her sleep. Aspiration. Walt rushes to help. His instinct is to save her, but then he stops. He watches. He calculates. If she lives, she takes Jesse away. She blackmails him. If she dies, Jesse is free, and the problem is solved. Bryan Cranston's acting in this silent minute is Oscar-worthy. You see the conflict, the pain, and then the cold resolve. He lets her choke to death. He cries, but he does not act. This is the point of no return. He has actively allowed an innocent, albeit troubled person, to die for his own gain. It is monstrous. It is the moment he truly breaks bad. The fallout is immediate. Jesse wakes up to find her dead and is destroyed. He blames himself. Walt swoops in, not as the cause, but as the savior, taking Jesse to rehab. It is manipulation at its finest. But the cosmic consequences are just beginning. This brings us back to the pink teddy bear. The facts behind the episode titles of Season 2 are legendary among fans. If you take the titles of the episodes that feature the flash forwards, 737, down, over, ABQ, it spells out exactly what happens. 737, down, over, ABQ. Vince Gilligan and the writers hid the ending in plain sight the entire time. It is a level of puzzle-making that rewards the obsessive audience. Jane's father, Donald Margolis, is an air traffic controller. We meet him briefly earlier in the season in a bar, where he actually has a conversation with Walt about the struggles of raising a daughter. Another small-world coincidence that twists the knife. Grief-stricken by Jane's death, Donald goes back to work too soon. He is distracted, sweating, shaking. In a horrific sequence, he misreads the radar and guides two planes, a Wayfarer 515 commercial airliner and a charter plane, into a collision course. The explosion in the sky is the boom we have been waiting for. The debris rains down on Albuquerque. The pink teddy bear from the plane falls directly into Walt's pool. The eye of the bear pops out and floats to the filter. This symbolism is heavy. The eye of God is watching Walt. He caused this. He let Jane die, which broke her father, which caused the crash that killed 167 people. The scale of his destruction has gone from a single life to a mass casualty event. Season 2 ends with the realization that Walt is a cancer not just to his body, but to the world around him. He is a toxic agent. The what-if scenarios are endless. What if he saved Jane? What if he never went to the bar? The interconnectedness of these events highlights the show's theme of karma, or perhaps the lack of it. Walt is safe. He has his money. He has his surgery. But the world is burning around him. We also get the first real tease of Gus Fring near the end of the season, the mysterious businessman at Los Pollos Hermanos. Walt meets him, and Gus initially rejects him because Jesse is high. You can never trust a drug addict. This sets the stage for the professional corporate evil that will define the next chapter. Gus is not like Tuco. He is not crazy. He is calculated. He is a mirror to what Walt wants to become. As we close the book on Season 2, we leave Walt standing by his pool, looking at the smoke rising from the city. He is wearing that pink sweater that matches the burnt bear. The universe has screamed at him to stop, but he is deaf to it. He has survived Tuco. He has survived cancer. And he has survived the DEA so far. But the walls are closing in. Skylar has moved out. She has figured out the lies. The marriage is crumbling. The crash has brought federal attention to the city, and somewhere a quiet man with a chicken franchise is watching. The chaotic energy of the early days is about to be replaced by a Cold War. The stakes have just gone stratospheric. The debris has settled, but the dust will never clear. This is the end of the amateur hour. Welcome to the Empire business. The dust from the Wayfarer 515 crash has barely settled, and we are entering the third chapter of this epic saga, a season that is widely considered by fans and critics alike to be one of the tightest, most stressful, and most visually stunning seasons of television ever produced. If Season 2 was about the consequences of chaos, Season 3 is about the suffocating grip of order. It is about the transition from the Wild West to the corporate machine, and it begins with a visual that is pure nightmare fuel. We are in Mexico, and we see a shrine to Santa Muerte, the saint of death. Villagers are crawling on their bellies in the dirt. Among them are two men in impeccably pressed gray suits, crawling with a synchronized, silent intensity that makes your skin crawl. These are the cousins Leonel and Marco Salamanca. Fun fact, these characters are played by real-life brothers, Luis and Daniel Moncada. One of them had never acted before. He was actually a gang member who turned his life around, bringing an authentic, menacing presence that you simply cannot teach in acting school. They are the Terminators of the Breaking Bad universe, silent assassins coming for Heisenberg to avenge Tuco. They place a drawing of Heisenberg at the shrine. The clock is ticking. Back in Albuquerque, Walt is trying to rationalize the plane crash in the most Walter White way possible. He stands in a high school gymnasium surrounded by traumatized students and gives a speech that is so incredibly awkward and tone-deaf that it is physically painful to watch. He talks about how the planes were not full, how there have been worse crashes in history. It is a glimpse into his sociopathy. He is minimizing the tragedy to minimize his guilt. He is trying to use logic to erase a massacre. It is insane to watch a man so disconnected from human emotion. Meanwhile, Skylar has finally had enough. She figures it out. The divorce papers are served. She confronts him with the truth. You're a drug dealer. Walt tries to feed her the gambling lie again, but she shuts him down. This is a massive moment. The secret is out. Skylar doesn't go to the police, though. Why? Because she doesn't want her son to know his father is a criminal. It is a complicated, messy decision that traps her in the lie with him. While his domestic life implodes, Walt gets an offer he literally cannot refuse. Gustavo Fring, the chicken man, the ghost, makes his move. He brings Walt to a location that changes the visual language of the show forever, the Super Lab. Hidden beneath an industrial laundry facility, this place is a chemist's wet dream. It is stainless steel, state-of-the-art, and massive. It is a stark contrast to the dirty, cramped RV. The color palette shifts here from the harsh yellows of the desert to the cool, sterile blues and silvers of the lab. Gus offers Walt $3 million for 3 months of his time. It is a mind-blowing amount of money. But Walt initially says no. He wants out. He wants to save his family. This leads to one of the most manipulative and brilliant speeches in the series. Gus tells him, a man provides, and he does it even when he is not appreciated or respected or even loved. He simply bears up, and he does it, because he is a man. It is a calculated strike at Walt's ego and his masculinity. Gus knows exactly which buttons to push. He frames cooking meth not as a crime, but as a duty. Walt, being the prideful creature he is, accepts. This partnership brings a new character into the fold, Gale Boetker. Gale is the anti-Jesse. He is a trained chemist. He loves coffee. He sings opera. He is polite. And he is a libertarian who believes in the purity of the chemistry. He is the perfect lab partner, and Walt hates it. Why? Because with Gale, Walt is just a cook. With Jesse, Walt is the master, the genius, the teacher. He needs that superiority. He eventually manipulates Gus into firing Gale and bringing Jesse back, claiming their chemistry is essential for the product. It is a fatal error, born of Walt's need for control and his strange, twisted loyalty to Jesse. But the threat of the cousins is looming. They find Walt's house. There is a terrifying scene where they sit on his bed while he is in the shower and Axe resting on the floor. They are seconds away from chopping him up. The only thing that saves him is a text message to Gus. Paulos. Gus intervenes. He calls off the dogs, but he has to give them something else. He gives them the real killer of Tuco, Hank Schrader. This is a brilliant 4D chess move by Gus. He directs the cartel violence toward the DEA, hoping they will take each other out, leaving him as the sole kingpin. This leads to the most adrenaline-pumping sequence in the show's history. 1 minute. Hank has been spiraling. He is obsessed with the Heisenberg case. He tracks the RV to a junkyard where Walt and Jesse are hiding inside. This is the closest Walt comes to being caught. They are trapped. Hank is outside, pounding on the door. He knows they are in there. Walt and Saul Goodman concoct a plan that is pure evil. They call Hank and tell him his wife, Marie, has been in a horrible accident and is being airlifted to the hospital. Hank, panic-stricken, leaves immediately. When he finds out it is a lie, the rage in his eyes is terrifying. He goes to Jesse's house and beats him to a pulp. This leads to Hank's suspension and his gun being taken away. He is defenseless. He is sitting in a parking lot, contemplating his career, when he gets a distorted call. 2 men are coming to kill you. You have 1 minute. The tension in those 60 seconds is excruciating. The clock ticks. Then the cousins arrive. The shootout is chaotic, brutal, and clumsy in a realistic way. Hank uses his car to crush one brother's legs. He gets shot multiple times. He takes the gun from the fallen brother and shoots the other one in the head, just as the axe is swinging down. It is an epic survival moment. Hank Schrader, the man who was having panic attacks, becomes the hero. But the cost is high. He is paralyzed from the waist down. This event shatters the White family. Walt rushes to the hospital, playing the concerned brother-in-law, knowing full well he is the reason this happened. The guilt is starting to mount, but so is the danger. In the midst of this high-stakes drama, we get the most polarizing episode of the entire series, The Fly. Directed by Rian Johnson, this is a bottle episode, filmed in one location to save money for the budget-heavy finale. But it is also a psychological masterpiece. There is a fly in the super lab. Walt becomes obsessed with catching it, claiming it is a contaminant. He stops the cook. He builds contraptions. He falls off the catwalk. It is slapstick, but it is also a breakdown. The fly represents the contamination in his soul, the guilt over Jane, the lies, the danger. Jesse drugs him with sleeping pills to calm him down, and in his drowsy state, Walt almost confesses to letting Jane die. "I'm so sorry about Jane," he mumbles. "It's all contaminated." Jesse doesn't understand the full weight of it, but the audience is on the edge of their seats. It is a moment of intimacy between the two men that highlights how tragic their bond is. Walt needs Jesse, and he is terrified of losing him, but he is also keeping the darkest secret imaginable from him. As the season races to its climax, things fall apart with Gus. Jesse discovers that 2 of Gus's dealers are using an 11-year-old boy, the little brother of his new girlfriend Andrea, to peddle drugs and kill rivals, including his friend Combo. Jesse is furious. He demands Gus stop using kids. Gus agrees, shaking hands, claiming he didn't know. But then the kid turns up dead on a street corner. Jesse loses his mind. He grabs his gun and goes to kill the dealers. He is walking to his execution. He is one guy against 2 armed thugs. He is going to die. Then, out of nowhere, the Pontiac Aztec roars into the frame. This is the run moment. It is iconic. Walt plows into the 2 dealers with his car, sending them flying. One is crushed under the wheel. The other is reaching for his gun. Walt steps out of the car, calm as ice, picks up the dealer's gun, and shoots him point blank in the head. He looks at a stunned Jesse and says one word, "Run." It is shocking. Walt has just committed murder in broad daylight to save Jesse. He has crossed a line he can never uncross. He has declared war on Gus Fring. The fallout is immediate. Gus is not a man who forgives insubordination. He brings Walt and Jesse into the desert, metaphorically, and sometimes literally, and threatens them. But he can't kill Walt because he needs the cook. However, he has a backup plan, Gale. Gus brings Gale back into the lab, telling him to learn Walt's method perfectly. Walt realizes the clock is ticking. Once Gale knows the recipe, Walt is a dead man. He is expendable. The only way to survive is to take Gale off the board. This is the survival of the fittest logic that has consumed Walt completely. He tries to find Gale's address himself, but is intercepted by Mike and Victor. They are going to kill him in the lab. This leads to the heart-stopping finale. Full measure. Walt is on his knees, begging for his life. Mike is ready to pull the trigger. Walt offers to give up Jesse. "I'll give you Pinkman." Mike hands him the phone, but Walt doesn't give up Jesse. He calls him. "Jesse, do it. You have to do it now. He's at 6353 Juan Tabo, apartment 6. Go." Mike realizes too late what is happening. Walt isn't begging. He is executing a countermove. He tells Mike, "You might want to hold off. Your boss is going to need me." 63 Juan Tabo, apartment 6. Yeah. The realization on Mike's face is priceless. He has been outsmarted. The final scene of the season is tragic. Jesse, the guy who didn't want to dissolve a body, the guy who loves kids, knocks on Gale's door. Gale is listening to weird music, drinking tea, completely innocent in the violence of the trade. He sees Jesse's gun. He begs, "You don't have to do this." Jesse is crying. He is shaking. The camera pushes in on his face, the tears welling up. He raises the gun. The camera moves to the barrel. A shot rings out. Cut to black. This ending is a punch in the gut. It signifies the complete corruption of Jesse Pinkman. Walt has turned him into a murderer to save his own skin. The what if is painful. If Jesse had just run away, if Walt had just accepted his fate, Gale would be alive. But Walt's survival instinct is a black hole that devours everyone around him. Gale was a nice guy. He was a quirk in the system, and his death is the spark that will ignite the all-out war of Season 4. Season 3 is where Breaking Bad became a true phenomenon. It gave us the memes. "I am the one who knocks" is coming, but the energy is here, the villains, and the moral complexity that defines the golden age of television. We saw the rise of the super lab and the fall of Hank Schrader. We saw the cousins come and go in a blaze of silent fury, and we saw a fly almost bring down an empire. But the most important takeaway is the shift in power. Walt thinks he has won. He thinks he has checkmated Gus, but he has only poked the bear. Gus Fring is not Tuco. He is not crazy. He is a genius. And in the next chapter, we are going to see a chess match between two grand masters of crime that will leave the audience breathless. The box cutter is coming. The danger is no longer knocking. It is inside the house. Before we move on, think about the tragedy of Gale Boetticher. His notebook, the lab notes, is full of drawings, poems, and recipes for vegan s'mores. He was a gentle soul in a violent world. His death is the first time we see the direct, cold-blooded murder of a civilian in the game by our protagonists, excluding the plane crash victims. It removes the last layer of innocence. There are no good guys left, only survivors. And as we head into Season 4, the question isn't, Will they get caught? It's who is going to kill who first. The tension is unbearable, and it is absolutely delicious. So, let the image of that gun barrel linger. Let the sound of that shot ring in your ears. Because when we come back, things are going to get messy. Really, really messy. The silence of the superlab has never been louder. We are entering the 4th chapter of our journey, and we begin with an episode titled Box Cutter. If the previous season ended with a bang, this one starts with a breath-holding, suffocating tension that lasts for nearly the entire hour. Walt and Jesse are being held captive in the lab by Mike and Victor. They are sitting on chairs, waiting for the boss to arrive. Victor, in a moment of arrogance, decides to start the cook himself. He has been watching Walt for months. He thinks it is just a recipe. It's just following steps, he sneers. He is trying to prove he is valuable, that Walt is replaceable. It is a fatal miscalculation. When Gus Fring finally arrives, he does not say a word. Not one. He walks down the stairs, meticulously removes his suit jacket, folds his shirt, and puts on a hazmat suit. The sound design here is terrifying. Just the rustle of fabric and the hum of the ventilation. Walt is rambling, trying to use logic to talk his way out of death, listing reasons why he is essential. Gus ignores him completely. He picks up a box cutter from a utility shelf. He walks over to Victor, not Walt. In a motion that is so sudden and visceral it made millions of viewers jump, he slices Victor's throat. He holds the dying man, forcing Walt and Jesse to watch the life drain out of him. Then he drops the body, cleans himself up, changes back into his suit, and delivers one line: "Get back to work." It is the ultimate power move. It tells them, I don't need to speak to control you, and anyone who flies too close to the sun gets burned. The what if here is chilling. If Victor had just sat still, he might have lived. But his ego, like everyone else's in this show, was his downfall. This kicks off a season of psychological warfare. Walt buys a snub-nosed .38 special revolver, practicing his draw in his apartment. He is paranoid, checking under his car for bombs, jumping at shadows. He is trying to be the tough guy, but he is terrified. Meanwhile, Skylar is making moves. She negotiates the purchase of the car wash from Bogdan, the man who humiliated Walt in the pilot. This isn't just business. It is revenge. She uses a fake environmental audit, scripted by Saul Goodman, to force Bogdan to sell. When Bogdan hands over the keys, he tells her that being a boss requires being tough. Skylar, holding the symbolic first dollar Walt earned there, realizes she is tougher than anyone gives her credit for. But the domestic tension explodes in the famous "I am the one who knocks" scene. Skylar is worried that Walt is in danger, that someone will come to their door and shoot him. Walt, stung by her pity and desperate to assert his dominance, snaps. He rips off his shirt and growls, "Who are you talking to right now? Who is it you think you see?" "I am not in danger, Skylar. I am the danger. A guy opens his door and gets shot, and you think that of me?" "No. I am the one who knocks." It is the most quoted line in the series, but listen closely to how Bryan Cranston delivers it. It is not just confidence. It is delusion. He is trying to convince himself as much as her. He is a man with a target on his back pretending to be the hunter. While Walt is spiraling into paranoia, Jesse is spiraling into oblivion. The guilt of killing Gale has broken him. He buys a massive sound system and turns his house into a 24/7 rave. He throws money at people, literally. He invites strangers to tear his house apart, just so he doesn't have to be alone with his thoughts. There is a heartbreaking scene where he is riding go-karts alone, crying behind his helmet. It captures the loneliness of trauma perfectly. Gus sees this instability and makes a calculated move. He tells Mike to take Jesse on ride-alongs. At first, Walt thinks this is a setup to kill Jesse, but it is actually a grooming tactic. Mike stages a fake robbery, where Jesse has to save him. It gives Jesse a sense of purpose. He feels useful again. He starts to become loyal to Mike, and by extension, to Gus. This drives a wedge between Walt and Jesse. Walt is jealous. He is the father figure who is losing his son to the cool uncle. The dynamic shifts. Jesse is becoming the professional, and Walt is becoming the liability. This season also gives us the deepest look into who Gustavo Fring really is. In the episode Hermanos, we travel back to 1989. We see a younger, more naive Gus by a pool in Mexico with his partner, Max. They are pitching their meth business to the cartel boss, Don Eladio. But they offend the cartel by giving samples to their men without permission. Hector Salamanca, the man in the wheelchair, is standing there, fully able-bodied. In a shocking twist, Hector shoots Max in the head, forcing Gus to stare at his dead partner's body, while Eladio mocks him. "The only reason you are alive, and he is not, is because I know who you are." This revelation is mind-blowing. Gus's entire empire, his discipline, his fast food chain, it is all a long-game revenge plot. He hates the cartel more than anything. Every smile at Los Polos Hermanos is a mask for a man who wants to burn the world down. This makes Gus a sympathetic villain. We understand his rage. We almost root for him against the bullies of the cartel. The conflict escalates when the cartel starts attacking Gus's trucks. They want the Heisenberg formula. Gus plays a dangerous game. He agrees to give them the formula, but he sends Jesse to Mexico to cook it, not Walt. This is the Salud episode, and it is a masterpiece. Jesse, terrified, stands in a cartel superlab surrounded by chemists who speak Spanish and mock him. But Jesse knows the process. He steps up, shouting at the lead chemist, "Stop whining and cook." He produces a batch that is 96.2% pure. The cartel is impressed. They want him to stay. But the celebration that follows is the real crazy moment. Everyone gathers at Don Eladio's pool, the same pool where Max died. Gus brings a gift, a rare bottle of Zafiro Añejo tequila. He pours shots for everyone, including himself. They drink. The party starts. But Gus goes to the bathroom and calmly induces vomiting. The tequila was poisoned. Outside, the cartel capos start dropping like flies. Don Eladio collapses into the pool, dead. Gus walks out, stumbling from the poison still in his system, and shouts at the remaining henchmen in Spanish, "Don Eladio is dead. His capos are dead. You have no one left to fight for. Fill your pockets and leave in peace, or fight me and die." It is the most epic revenge sequence ever filmed. He wiped out the entire cartel leadership in one night, unarmed. Mike gets shot in the chaos, and Jesse drives them out, saving both of their lives. The student has become the master. Back in Albuquerque, Walt is being frozen out. He is not cooking. He is being watched. And Hank is closing in. Hank, now recovering and using a cane, has convinced the DEA to look into the industrial laundry. He asks Walt to drive him there to investigate. Walt, in a panic, deliberately crashes his car into oncoming traffic to stop Hank from seeing the lab. It is a desperate, reckless move that leaves Walt battered and bloody. The walls are closing in from every side. Gus fires Walt. He tells him, "You are done, fired. Do not show your face at the laundry again." He threatens to kill Hank if Walt interferes. And then he drops the ultimate bomb. I will kill your wife. I will kill your son. I will kill your infant daughter. This leads to the scene that many consider the greatest acting moment in Bryan Cranston's career, the crawl space. Walt realizes he needs to disappear. He rushes to Saul Goodman, asking for the number of the disappearer, a man who can give you a new identity for a high price. He needs $500,000 cash. He races home, scrambling into the crawl space under the house, where he hides the money. He starts throwing stacks of cash into a bag. But it is not enough. He asks Skylar where the rest of the money is. Skylar, terrified, confesses she gave $600,000 to Ted Beneke, her former boss, to pay off his IRS debt so the audit wouldn't trace back to her. The money is gone. The escape hatch is closed. Walt freezes. He looks up at the insulation hanging from the floorboards. He starts to scream, but the scream morphs into a laugh, a manic, broken, terrifying laugh. He is lying on his back in the dirt, laughing hysterically, while Skylar backs away in horror. The camera slowly pulls up, rising away from him, framing him in the square hole of the crawl space, like he is in a coffin. The sound of his laughter mixes with a distorted, thumping industrial score that sounds like a heartbeat stopping. The phone rings. It is Marie, leaving a panic-stricken voicemail saying that the cartel is threatening Hank again, a ruse by Gus, though she doesn't know it. The camera keeps rising. Walt keeps laughing. He has lost his mind. Walter White is dead. He died in that crawl space. What climbs out of that hole in the next episode is something else entirely. A creature of pure survival and malice. The what-if scenario here is painful. If Skylar hadn't given the money to Ted, the White family would have vanished. They would have lived out their days in New Hampshire or Nebraska, safe but obscure. But fate, or perhaps the writer's genius, demanded a confrontation. The money being gone forces Walt to stand and fight. He has no other choice. He is cornered, and a cornered animal is the most dangerous thing in the world. We also have to touch on the dark comedy of Ted Beneke's fate. Skylar sends Huel and Kubi, Saul's henchmen, to force Ted to write the check to the IRS. Ted, in a panic, tries to run, trips on a rug, and slides headfirst into a kitchen cabinet. It is slapstick gold in the middle of a tragedy. He doesn't die, but he ends up paralyzed, or severely injured, with a neck brace, a living reminder of the chaos Skylar has unleashed. It is a bizarre Coen Brothers-esque twist that fits perfectly in this universe. As we end this chapter, the board is set for the final showdown of the season. Gus Fring is the king. He has defeated the cartel. He has the DEA chasing its tail. He has Jesse on his side. And he has sentenced Walt to death. Walt has nothing, no money, no allies, no plan. He is just a man with a chemistry set and a massive ego. But never underestimate the power of a desperate genius. The next few days in the show's timeline will feature a lily of the valley, a nursing home, and a bell. The explosive finale is coming, and it is going to blow the face off the entire story. Literally. So, lie back and visualize that camera pulling away from the crawl space. Hear the laughter echoing in the darkness. The tension is at its absolute peak. The king is on his throne, but the pawn is about to become the player. The game is not over until the bell rings. And trust me, that bell is going to ring. We are now entering the 5th chapter of this Odyssey. And if you thought the crawl space was the bottom of the barrel, you are about to witness the most explosive, mind-bending, and legendary sequence of events in television history. We pick up exactly where we left off. Walter White has climbed out of the hole in the floor. The laughter has stopped. The panic has been replaced by a cold, reptilian resolve. He knows Gus Fring is coming for him. He knows his family is in danger. He sends Schuyler and the kids to Hank's house for protection, knowing that the DEA is the one place Gus won't attack. He sits by his pool, spinning his snub-nosed revolver on the table. It points to him. Then it points to him again. Then it points to a potted plant in the corner of his backyard. The camera lingers on it for a second, a subtle detail that most first-time viewers missed completely. This is the moment the master plan is hatched. It is a plan so evil, so risky, and so insane that it redefines the character forever. Walt realizes that to kill the king, he needs an army, but he doesn't have an army. He has Jesse Pinkman, but Jesse hates him. Jesse is loyal to Mike and Gus now. So Walt has to break that loyalty. He has to shatter it. Then comes the news. Brock Cantillo, the 6-year-old son of Jesse's girlfriend Andrea, is suddenly in the ICU with a mysterious illness. Jesse is frantic. He assumes it is the ricin. He checks his cigarette pack. The lucky cigarette with the poison vial is missing. He puts 2 and 2 together and gets 5. He thinks Walt poisoned the boy to get back at him. Jesse storms into Walt's house, gun in hand, ready to execute him. This scene is a masterclass in manipulation. Walt is on his knees, a gun to his forehead, and he talks his way out of it. He spins a narrative that Gus is the one who did it. Who has been watching us? Who allows children to be used? Who has a history of this? He convinces Jesse that Gus stole the cigarette to frame Walt, to turn Jesse against him, so Gus could kill Walt without Jesse objecting. It is a lie, wrapped in logic. Jesse wavers. He lowers the gun. He turns his rage toward Gus. "I'll kill him," Jesse says. Walt has his soldier back. The what if here is terrifying. If Jesse had pulled that trigger, the story ends with Walt dead on his rug and a child murderer going unpunished. But Walt's tongue is mightier than the sword. They try to kill Gus with a car bomb at the hospital. Walt builds a bomb in his kitchen, a frantic, messy process. He plants it on Gus's Volvo. But then the sixth sense moment happens. Gus walks to his car, stops, looks around, and walks away. He doesn't know Walt is there, but he knows something feels wrong. It is a testament to Gus's survival instincts. He is a ghost. Walt retrieves the bomb, frustrated. He needs a new angle. He needs to lure Gus into a trap where his guard is down. He asks Jesse, does he have a weakness? Jesse says no. But then, a thought. He visits Tio, Hector Salamanca, the old man in the nursing home, the man who hates Gus more than anyone. Walt realizes that the enemy of his enemy is his bomb detonator. Walt breaks into the nursing home. He sits in front of Hector. "I know you despise me," Walt says, "but I know you hate him more." He offers Hector a chance for revenge. The final ding. The plan is set. Hector goes to the DEA, pretending to turn informant. This is the bait. Gus finds out Hector talked. He decides he has to kill Hector personally. He cannot risk the old man talking. It is hubris. It is pride. The same thing that drives Walt, drives Gus to his doom. Tio returns to his room at Casa Tranquila. The atmosphere is thick with dread. Gus arrives with Tio's pills, preparing to inject him with poison. He dismisses his bodyguard. He stands over the old man. "Last chance to look at me, Hector." Hector, who has refused to look at Gus for years, slowly turns his head. His face contorts into a twisted, hateful snarl. He starts dinging the bell. Ding, 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 ding. But it is not just a bell. Walt has rigged the bomb to the wheelchair. The camera follows the wire from the bell to the pipe bomb underneath the seat. Gus realizes it a split second too late. He screams, "Haw!" The explosion rips the door off the room. Smoke fills the hallway. And then, the moment that is etched into pop culture history. Gus Fring walks out of the room. He adjusts his tie. For a second we think, no way, he survived? Is he immortal? Then the camera pans around. Half of his face is gone, blown off, reveals the skull and muscle underneath. It is gruesome, shocking, and artistically perfect. He collapses. The Chicken Man is dead. This effect took months to achieve, enlisting the help of the special effects team from The Walking Dead. It is a perfect blend of practical makeup and CGI. It is the death of a titan. Walt hears the news on the radio. He goes to the super lab, where he shoots the 2 guards and rescues Jesse. They have one last job: destroy the lab. They pour chemicals everywhere, set a timer, and leave. As the lab burns, consuming the millions of dollars of equipment and the meth, Freestyle by the Talby Brothers plays. A chaotic, flamenco-style guitar track that matches the energy perfectly. Walt and Jesse shake hands. "We've got a lot of work to do," Walt says. But then, the quiet coda. Walt sits with Skylar. She asks him if he killed Gus. He says, "I won." It is chilling. He didn't just survive. He won a game. But the final shot of Season 4 changes everything. The camera tracks through Walt's backyard. It moves past the pool. It settles on the potted plant we saw earlier. The tag reads, "Lily of the Valley." The realization hits the audience like a freight train. It wasn't Ryson. It wasn't Gus. It was Walt. Walt poisoned a 6-year-old boy with a flower from his own garden just to manipulate Jesse. He calculated the dosage so the boy would get sick enough to look like ricin poisoning, but not die, probably. He risked a child's life as a chess move. This is the moment Walter White becomes irredeemable. He is a monster. The internet exploded when this aired. The debates were fierce. Did he mean to kill him? How did he get the berries to the kid? The writers later confirmed he likely put it in a juice box at the school. It reveals the depth of his depravity. Welcome to Season 5. The king is dead. Long live the king. The opening of Season 5 gives us a flash forward that is confusing and intriguing. We see a Walt with a full head of hair, a thick beard, looking ragged, celebrating his 52nd birthday alone at a Denny's. He buys an M60 machine gun in the trunk of a car. We know things are going to end badly, but we don't know how. Back in the present, the immediate problem is the evidence. Gus recorded everything in the super lab on a laptop. That laptop is now in the police evidence locker. Walt, Jesse, and Mike, who was reluctantly dragged back into the fold because his money was seized, need to destroy it. Mike wants to skip town. Walt says no. We have to destroy the laptop. This leads to the Magnets Bitch heist. It is one of the most fun, pure science capers in the show. They cannot bomb the police station, so they decide to use a massive industrial electromagnet to wipe the hard drive from the outside. They acquire a magnet from a junkyard. Old Joe, the owner, is a hilarious character who knows his legal rights perfectly. They rig it to a truck. They pull up to the police station wall. They crank the power. Inside the evidence room, chaos erupts. Guns fly off shelves. The laptop flies across the room and smashes against the wall. The plan works. Too well. The truck tips over. They have to flee. As they drive away, Mike asks if it worked. Walt says, "We're good." But in a classic Breaking Bad twist, by destroying the laptop, they broke the frame of a picture behind it, revealing a hidden list of Gus's offshore bank accounts. The magnet didn't solve the problem. It uncovered the next one. The DEA now has the list of Mike's guys, the legacy costs. 9 guys in prison who need to be paid to keep their mouths shut. Walt, Jesse, and Mike form a new partnership, but the dynamic is off. Walt is arrogant. He thinks he is the boss. Mike hates him. Jesse is trying to keep the peace. They need a place to cook. They can't build a new super lab. So, they get creative. They start Vamono's Pest, a pest control company. This is genius. They tent houses for fumigation, set up a mobile lab inside, cook while the house is tented, and pack up before the homeowners return. It is hiding in plain sight. We cook in people's living rooms. The yellow suits are back. The montage of the crystal blue meth being made in suburbia is iconic, but the cracks are forming at home. Skylar is living in a horror movie. She is terrified of Walt. She realizes she is sleeping next to a murderer. There is a deeply unsettling scene where Walt is eating dinner, acting like everything is normal, and Skylar is practically catatonic. She tells him, "I'm not your partner. I'm your hostage." She waits for his cancer to come back. That is her only hope. I'm waiting for the cancer to come back. It is brutal. Walt just keeps eating. He buys new cars for himself and Walter Jr., flashy Dodge Challengers. He is reckless. He is spending money he doesn't have yet. He is high on power. We also meet Lydia Rodart Quayle. She is a nervous, high-strung executive at Madrigal Electromotive, the parent company of Los Pollos Hermanos. She is the supplier of methylamine. She is terrified of being caught, constantly asking Mike to kill people on the list. Mike calls her chaotic. But Walt needs her. The supply of methylamine is drying up. This leads to the planning of the greatest heist in the show's history, the train heist. Lydia reveals that a train carrying thousands of gallons of methylamine runs through a dead zone in the desert. They don't need to stop the train and steal it all. They just need to siphon some off and replace it with water so the weight stays the same. It is a perfect crime. But before we get to the train, we have to talk about the 51st birthday. Walt turns 51, 1 year since the pilot, 1 year since the diagnosis. Look at the transformation. He was a timid teacher. Now he is a drug lord planning train robberies. Skylar stages a suicide attempt in the pool during his birthday dinner, walking into the deep end fully clothed to get the kids taken away from the house. It works. The kids go to Hank and Marie's. Walt is left alone in his house. He has his empire, but he has an empty castle. He sits watching Scarface with Walter Jr. earlier, completely missing the irony that Tony Montana dies at the end. He thinks he is the exception. The friction with Mike is reaching a boiling point. Mike sees Walt as a ticking time bomb. "You are trouble," he says. Walt resents Mike's lack of ambition. Walt wants to be a king. Mike just wants to be paid. The addition of Todd Alquist to the Vamono's Pest crew seems minor at first. Todd is polite, quiet, eager to please. He seems like a good worker, a yes man. But as we are about to find out, Todd is a sociopath with zero moral compass. He is what Walt would be if Walt had no conscience at all. The casting of Jesse Plemons was brilliant. He has this innocent, almost boyish face that hides a complete lack of humanity. As we wrap up this chapter, the team is preparing for the train heist. They have the location, they have the equipment, they have the plan. It feels like a classic Western again, the outlaws on the tracks. But the tragedy of Breaking Bad is that every victory comes with a soul-crushing cost. The what if hangs heavy. What if they had just stopped after killing Gus? What if Walt had taken his win and retired? He had enough money, but he told Jesse, "I'm in the empire business. It is not about money anymore. It is about legacy, and that legacy is about to get stained with the most innocent blood yet. So visualize the track stretching out into the desert, heat waves rising, the rumble of a train engine in the distance. The clock is ticking. The perfect crime is about to go down, but no one sees the spectator on the dirt bike. No one sees the little boy catching a tarantula in a jar. The collision of Walt's world and the innocent world is inevitable, and the crash is going to break the hearts of millions. The desert heat is shimmering off the tracks. We are at the halfway point of the final season, and we are about to witness the moment that arguably crushed the soul of the audience more than any other. This is the train heist. The setup is brilliant. Bill Burr's character, Kubi, uses a fake breakdown with a dump truck to stall the train. Walt, Jesse, and Todd are hiding under a bridge, hooking up hoses. The tension is unbearable because it is a race against time. They have to pump out the methylamine and pump in the water simultaneously while the train crew investigates the stall. It is a sequence that rivals any Hollywood action movie. The music pulses, the gauges fill. Then the train starts moving. Jesse is lying on the tracks, the massive wheels grinding inches from his face. As the train rolls over him, it is terrifying. They pull it off. They scream in triumph. It is the perfect heist. They have millions of dollars worth of precursor. They are rich. Then they turn around. Standing on a dirt bike, watching them, is a young boy, Drew Sharp. He has a jar with a tarantula in it. He waves. He's just a kid who happened to be in the wrong place. Jesse waves back, his face frozen in fear, but hoping the kid will just ride away. Todd waves too. Then Todd reaches into his belt. Without hesitation, without checking with Walt or Jesse, Todd pulls out a gun and shoots the boy. The screen goes black. The silence that followed this scene in living rooms across the world was deafening. This is the moment the fun of the criminal life died completely. They just murdered a child, not indirectly like Brock, but a bullet to the chest. Jesse screams. He is broken. This is the final nail in the coffin of Jesse's spirit. He cannot do this anymore. Walt, however, moves on terrifyingly fast. They dissolve the boy's body in acid. They dismantle his dirt bike. Walt whistles while he works. He is disturbed by it, yes, but he justifies it as necessary. Jesse sees a monster. This event fractures the group permanently. Jesse and Mike want out. They want to sell their share of the methylamine to a rival dealer, Declan, for $5 million each. They are done. But Walt refuses. He doesn't want $5 million. He wants the empire. He sabotages the deal. He gives the famous "Say My Name" speech to Declan in the desert. "You're Heisenberg. You're goddamn right." It is iconic, but it is also pathetic. He is clinging to this persona because Walter White is a failure, but Heisenberg is a god. He convinces Declan to become his distributor, cutting Mike and Jesse out of the decision. Mike is furious. He tries to leave town, but the DEA is seizing his money again. His lawyer, Dan Waxberger, flips on him. Mike has to run. This leads to the riverbank scene. Walt meets Mike to get the names of the 9 prisoners. Mike refuses. He is done with Walt. He gets into his car to leave. He tells Walt some hard truths. "We had a good thing, you son of a bitch. We had Fring. We had a lab. We had everything we needed, and it all ran like clockwork. You could have shut your mouth, cooked, and made as much money as you ever needed. It was perfect. But no, you just had to blow it up. You and your pride and your ego. It is the truth bomb the audience has been screaming for 4 seasons. Walt snaps. In a fit of rage, he grabs the gun from Mike's bag and shoots him through the car window. Mike drives off, crashes, and stumbles down to the river. Walt follows him. He finds Mike sitting on a rock, dying. Walt realizes he could have just gotten the names from Lydia. He didn't need to shoot Mike. It was pointless. He tries to apologize. Mike stops him. "Shut the fuck up and let me die in peace." Mike falls over, dead. The cool, calm professional is gone, killed by a petulant, ego-driven amateur. It is a senseless tragedy. Walt now has a problem. The 9 prisoners. With Mike gone, their hazard pay stops. They will talk. Walt meets with Lydia. She gives him the names. He meets with Todd's uncle, Jack Welker, the leader of a neo-Nazi gang. This is the introduction of the final, most brutal antagonists of the series. Jack and his crew are not businessmen like Gus. They are thugs. Walt commissions a prison hit. In a montage set to the upbeat song Pick Yourself Up, we see all 9 men brutally murdered in 3 different prisons within a 2-minute window. Stabbings, burnings, strangulations. It is a massacre. Walt checks his watch. It is done. He has tied up all the loose ends. There is no one left to testify against him. We then get the montage of the crystal blue persuasion. Walt is the king. He cooks. He ships to the Czech Republic Lydia's connection. He makes piles of money, literal piles. Skylar takes him to a storage unit. She pulls back a tarp to reveal a cube of cash so big she cannot even count it. "I stopped counting," she says. "I just waited." It is $80 million. She asks him, "How much is enough?" Walt looks at the money. He looks at her. He's tired. The cancer is back, hinted at. He realizes he has achieved his goal. He has more money than he can ever spend. He decides to retire. He tells Skylar, "I'm out." The family seems to be healing. Walt and Skylar are talking. Hank and Marie are coming over for barbecues. It feels peaceful. Too peaceful. Then comes the moment. The bathroom break. Hank needs to use the toilet. He looks for something to read. He finds a copy of Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman on the back of the toilet tank. He opens it. Inside, there is an inscription. "To my other favorite WW, it's an honor working with you. Fondly, G.B." Hank freezes. He remembers the case file, Gail Bodicher's notebook. WW, who do you figure that is? Woodrow Wilson? Willy Wonka? Walter White? Hank has a flashback. The pieces click into place. The missing lab equipment. The fugue state. The gambling money. The Heisenberg connection. It was Walt, all along. The brother-in-law he laughed at. The man he pitied. The man he protected. It was him. Hank looks up, staring into the camera, his face a mask of pure shock and rage. Cut to black. This was the mid-season finale. Fans had to wait a year to see what happened next. The internet melted down. Toilet epiphanies became a meme. But the brilliance of it is undeniable. It wasn't a gunfight that caught Walt. It was his vanity. He kept the book because it was a trophy, a tribute to his genius from a peer. His ego left the evidence right there on the porcelain throne. When the show returns for the final 8 episodes, the pace is blistering. Hank comes out of the bathroom, shaking. He feigns illness and leaves. He goes home and starts building a wall of evidence in his garage. He is obsessed. He is not the jovial Hank anymore. He is a man on a mission. Walt realizes the book is gone. He finds a tracker on his car, a callback to Gus. He knows Hank knows. The confrontation in the garage is legendary. Walt tries to play dumb, but Hank shuts the garage door. He punches Walt in the face. It was you. All along it was you. Walt drops the act. He turns into Heisenberg. If you don't know who I am, then maybe your best course would be to tread lightly. It is a direct threat. The family is at war. Walt buries his money. He takes the van to the Tohajili reservation, the exact spot where they did the first cook in the pilot. He buries 7 barrels of cash, GPS coordinates. He puts the numbers on a lottery ticket on his fridge. It is a clever hiding spot. But Jesse is the wild card. Jesse has been spiraling. He realizes Walt hurt Brock. He realizes Walt killed Mike. He goes to Saul's office and beats a confession out of him. He pours gasoline all over Walt's house. He is going to burn it down. Hank stops him. You want to burn him down? Let's do it together. Hank recruits Jesse. They are working together. They hatch a plan. They trick Walt into thinking they found his money. Jesse sends a photo of a barrel full of cash burning. Walt panics. He drives to the desert, screaming on the phone to Jesse, confessing to everything in his panic. I killed Emilio. I killed Crazy 8. I killed Gus Fring. I saved your life. Hank is recording it all. Walt arrives at the spot. No one is there. He realizes it is a trap. He sees a dust cloud. A car is coming. He hides. He calls Jack and the Nazis. I need you to come here. Kill them. But then he sees who gets out of the car. It is Hank and Gomez and Jesse. Walt realizes he cannot kill family. He calls off the hit. Do not come. But Jack has the coordinates. They are coming. Walt surrenders. He walks out with his hands up. Hank cuffs him. I got you. It is a moment of triumph for Hank. He reads him his rights. He calls Marie. I got him, baby. It feels like it is over, but we hear the engines. The Nazis arrive. 4 trucks, heavy weaponry. They surround them. It is a standoff. Hank and Gomez hold their guns up. Jack asks, Police? Walt screams from the back of the SUV. Jack, don't do it. Jack. The tension is unbearable. Then Jack raises his hand. Fire. The shootout is deafening. Bullets fly everywhere. The screen goes black. We are left with the cliffhanger of the century. We know Gomez is likely dead. We know Hank is outgunned. We know Walt is trapped in the middle of a war he started, but can no longer control. This leads us into Ozymandias, widely considered the greatest episode of television ever made. The title refers to the poem by Percy Bysshe Shelley about the ruins of a once great king's statue in the desert. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. It is the perfect metaphor for Walter White. His empire is about to turn to dust. The tragedy here is the inevitability of it all. Walt tried to call it off, but you cannot unring a bell. You cannot summon devils and then ask them to leave politely. The Nazis want the money. They don't care about Walt's family rules. The what if is heartbreaking. If Walt had just given himself up earlier, if he hadn't called Jack, if he hadn't been so greedy. But if doesn't exist in the desert, only consequences. As we prepare for the final plunge, take a moment to appreciate the symmetry. We are back where we started, Tukhajili, the red dirt, the cow houses in the distance. But the RV is gone, the innocence is gone, and soon the family will be gone too. The king is in handcuffs. But the executioner has arrived. The desert wind howls, and the gunfire stops. We are now in the 6th chapter, or rather, the beginning of the end. The episode is Ozymandias. If you have ever felt your heart physically ache while watching a TV show, this is probably the moment. The smoke clears. Gomez is dead. Hank has been shot in the leg. He is crawling towards his gun. Jack walks over and puts a boot on his hand. Walt is screaming, begging. He offers Jack everything. I have money, $80 million, buried right here. It is a desperate, pathetic attempt to buy his brother-in-law's life. Jack looks at Hank. What do you think, Fed? Should we take the money and let you go? Hank looks at Walt with a mix of pity and disgust. You're the smartest guy I ever met, Hank says, but you're too stupid to see. He made up his mind 10 minutes ago. It is the bravest line in the series. Hank Schrader, the man who started as a caricature of a macho cop, dies with the most dignity of anyone. He accepts his fate. Do what you're gonna do. Bam! Jack shoots him mid-sentence. Walt collapses. He falls to the ground in slow motion, his mouth open in a silent scream. It is a face of pure agony. The king has lost his jester, his knight, and his soul. The Nazis dig up the money. They take 6 barrels. They leave 1 for Walt. A gesture of goodwill, Jack says. But Walt isn't done. He spots Jesse hiding under a car. He points him out to the Nazis. You owe me, he tells Jack. They drag Jesse out. Jack puts a gun to his head. Todd interrupts. We could find out what he told the feds first. They decide to take Jesse to torture him. Before they drag him away, Walt walks up to Jesse and delivers the final knife twist. I watched Jane die. I was there, and I watched her die. I could have saved her, but I didn't. It is pure spite. He blames Jesse for Hank's death, so he destroys him with the truth. Walt drives away in his old car, but it runs out of gas, a bullet hole in the tank. He rolls the barrel of money through the desert. It is a pathetic image. He buys a truck from an old Native American man for a stack of cash. He rushes home. He packs bags. He screams at Skylar and Junior to leave. We have to go, now. Skylar realizes something is wrong. Where is Hank? Walt won't answer. Skylar grabs a knife from the counter. She slashes Walt's hand. They fight. It is ugly, messy, and terrifying. They roll on the floor. Junior jumps in, tackling his father to protect his mother. He calls 911. My dad has a knife. Walt stands there, panting, looking at his family cowering in fear from him. He realizes he has lost them. He grabs baby Holly and runs. He kidnaps his own daughter. He drives away, but he knows it is over. He calls Skylar. He knows the police are listening. He goes on a tirade, screaming at her, calling her a bitch, saying she never supported him. But look at his face. He is crying. He is intentionally painting himself as the villain and her as the victim to save her from prosecution. It is his final act of protection. He leaves Holly at a fire station with a note pinned to her chest. He calls the disappearer. He sits on the curb, waiting for the red van. A stray dog crosses the street. It is the end of Walter White. We jump forward in time. The Granite State. Walt is in New Hampshire. He lives in a cabin in the middle of nowhere. No phone, no internet. The disappearer, Ed, played by the late, great Robert Forster, brings him supplies once a month. Walt is dying. The cancer is back with a vengeance. He is frail, coughing, lonely. He pays Ed thousands of dollars just to stay for an hour and play cards. He has a barrel of money, but nowhere to spend it. It is his personal hell. He is a king with no kingdom. He tries to send money to Junior via a friend at a bar, but Junior rejects it. Why don't you just die already? It breaks him. Walt calls the DEA. He is ready to surrender. He leaves the phone off the hook so they can trace him. He sits at the bar, waiting. But then he sees something on the TV. Elliot and Gretchen Schwartz are being interviewed by Charlie Rose. They are distancing themselves from Walter White. They say the only thing he contributed to gray matter was the name. Walter White is gone, they say. The sweet, kind man we knew is gone. This sparks something in Walt. Rage, pride, ego. It is Heisenberg rising from the ashes one last time. He realizes he can't go out like this. He leaves the bar, just as the police arrive. The song Granite State swells. He is on a mission. Meanwhile, Jesse is in hell. The Nazis have him chained in a pit. He is a slave. He cooks meth for them. He tried to escape once, and they killed Andrea right in front of him while he watched from a car, gagged. It is the darkest moment for Jesse. He is broken. A shell of a human being. Walt drives back to Albuquerque. He has a plan. He visits Elliot and Gretchen. He slips into their mansion like a ghost. He doesn't kill them. He uses them. He gives them the money, $9 million, and tells them to give it to Junior on his 18th birthday as a charitable donation from their foundation. He threatens them with laser pointers aimed through the window, claiming he has hired hitmen, actually just Badger and Skinny Pete with laser pointers, to watch them forever. If the money doesn't get to my son, bang! It is a brilliant bluff. He secures his legacy. He visits Skylar one last time. She is living in a grim apartment. He gives her the lottery ticket with the coordinates of Hank and Steve Gomez's bodies. Trade this for a deal, he says. She asks him why he did it. She expects the for the family lie. But Walt finally tells the truth. I did it for me. I liked it. I was good at it. And I was alive. It is the confession we waited 5 seasons for. He says goodbye to baby Holly. He watches Junior from afar. Then he goes to the Nazi compound. He pulls up to the clubhouse. They bring Jesse up to show him off. Walt tackles Jesse to the ground. He triggers his car keys. The trunk of his car pops open. The M60 machine gun he bought in the flash forward is mounted on a robotic arm he built. It starts firing through the wall. It mows down the Nazis. Jack, Todd, everyone is hit. Walt is hit in the side by a ricochet. The gun runs out of ammo. Todd survives, dazed. Jesse strangles Todd with his chains. It is visceral, personal revenge. He snaps his neck. Walt stands over Jack. Jack is bleeding out. He tries to bargain. You want your money? You'll never find it if you kill me. Walt shoots him in the face mid-sentence, mirroring Hank's death. He doesn't care about the money anymore. Walt kicks the gun to Jesse. Do it, he says. You want this? Jesse holds the gun. He looks at Walt. He sees the wound in Walt's side. Say you want this, Jesse says. I want this, Walt admits. Then do it yourself, Jesse says. He drops the gun. He refuses to be Walt's tool one last time. He gets in the El Camino. He speeds away, screaming, crying, laughing. He is free. Walt is alone. He walks into the lab. The Nazis were using his formula. He looks at the equipment with a strange fondness. He touches a tank. He leaves a bloody handprint on it. Baby Blue by Badfinger starts playing. Guess I got what I deserved. He collapses on the floor. The camera rises straight up, looking down on him. A slight smile on his face. The police rush in. He is dead. And that, my friends, is the end of the story. Or is it? The legacy of Breaking Bad is that it didn't just end, it lingered. It asked us uncomfortable questions about morality, ego, and the American dream. Was it worth it? For Walt, maybe. He died on his own terms. He provided for his family, financially at least. He became a legend. But the cost was everything else. He destroyed everyone who ever loved him. He left a trail of bodies from the desert to the suburbs. The what-if scenarios are endless. What if he took the job at Gray Matter in Season 1? What if he let Jane live? What if he saved Gail? But that is the beauty of the tragedy. Every choice was a step on a road that only went one way. The chemistry of change, transformation, growth, decay. So, as we close the book on Heisenberg, take a deep breath. You have just experienced one of the greatest narratives ever told, the story of a man who woke up and decided to burn the world down just to feel the heat. And we, the audience, stood by the fire and watched it burn. The king is dead, but the kingdom is in chaos. We have reached the 7th chapter of our saga, and while Walter White's heart has stopped beating on the concrete floor of that neo-Nazi compound, his ghost is about to haunt Albuquerque with a vengeance. This chapter is titled The Shadow of Heisenberg, and it explores the immediate, terrifying aftermath of the finale and the final hidden moments of Walt's life that were revealed only later in the film El Camino. Imagine the scene. Police sirens are wailing, helicopters are chopping the air, and the news choppers are circling the compound like vultures. The report goes out. Walter White, the Heisenberg, has been found dead. For the world of the show, this is the capture of bin Laden, the death of Pablo Escobar, and the finding of D.B. Cooper, all rolled into one. The sheer scale of the crime scene, the M60 machine gun, the piles of bodies, the meth lab, it turns Walt into an instant myth. But while the coroners are zipping up the body bag, one loose thread is speeding away in a Chevrolet El Camino. Jesse Pinkman. This brings us to the events of El Camino, which serves as a crucial epilogue to Walt's story because it shows us the true cost of his empire on the human soul. Jesse is screaming as he drives, but these are not just screams of relief. They are screams of a fractured mind. The facts behind the production of El Camino are almost as fascinating as the movie itself. Vince Gilligan filmed it in complete secrecy. They used code names, hidden sets, and even blocked off views with massive trucks so no one knew they were bringing the world of Breaking Bad back to life. Why? Because the audience needed closure. We needed to know if Walt's sacrifice actually meant anything. If Jesse gets caught 5 miles down the road, Walt's final act of redemption is meaningless. So, the stakes are incredibly high. Jesse is the living vessel of Walt's legacy, and he is hunted. The psychological horror of this chapter is intense. Jesse hides at Skinny Pete and Badger's house. These two characters, often used for comic relief, provide a moment of profound loyalty. When they see Jesse, scarred, terrified, looking like a feral animal, they don't ask questions. They help. Skinny Pete gives Jesse his beanie, a symbol of his identity, and creates a decoy to throw the police off. "You're my hero and shit," he tells Jesse. It is a line that breaks your heart because it reflects how the streets view the Heisenberg saga as something legendary, ignoring the blood. But the most chilling part of this aftermath is the flashback. We are transported back in time to the 4 Days Out era, to a diner sequence that we never saw in the main show. Walt and Jesse are sitting in a booth, eating a buffet breakfast. The RV is parked outside. Walt is still in remission, not yet the full monster, but the ego is there. He asks Jesse about his life, about his education. He tells Jesse, "You're lucky, you know. You didn't have to wait your whole life to do something special." This line is the skeleton key to Walter White's entire psyche. It confirms that everything he did, the murder, the meth, the destruction, was driven by a deep-seated fear of mediocrity. He would rather be a special villain than an average man. Seeing this conversation after we have watched him die adds a layer of tragic irony that is almost unbearable. He is telling a kid who is about to be tortured and enslaved that he is lucky. It shows how delusional Walt was about the glory of their work. He thought they were building something great. Jesse just wanted to make some money. The disconnect between them was fatal from the start. But the ghost of Walt appears in other forms too. In El Camino, we see the money again, the money that Walt killed for, the money that drove the plot. Jesse needs to find Todd's hidden cache to escape. This leads him to Todd's apartment, a surreal, candy-colored nightmare that reflects the twisted mind of the sociopath Walt hired. The apartment is clean, decorated with snow globes and generic art, yet we know a monster lived there. It is a mirror to Walt's own double life, the suburban beige hiding the dark rot. When Jesse finds the money, hidden in the door of a refrigerator, a cold place for cold cash, it feels like he is reclaiming a piece of his soul that Walt stole. But he has to kill for it. He has a duel with Neil Candy, the welder who built the shackles that held him. This duel is a Western showdown, straight out of the genre tropes Vince Gilligan loves. Jesse shoots him with a concealed .22 pistol. He uses a trick he learned from the best. He learned from Walt. The tragedy is that to survive, Jesse had to become a little bit like Heisenberg. There is another massive what if that looms over this chapter. What if Walt had survived the gunshot wound? The legal battle would have been the trial of the century. Skylar would have been destroyed on the stand. The kids would have been dragged through the mud. By dying, Walt actually spared them the circus. He became a martyr to some, a devil to others, but he removed himself as an active variable. However, his shadow falls heavily on Skylar. In the aftermath, she is a pariah. She is the gangster's wife. We see glimpses of this in the final episodes, but the reality post-finale is grim. She's working a dispatch job, living in a small apartment, smoking chains. The $80 million is gone, mostly. She has the coordinates to the bodies, which gives her leverage for a plea deal, but her reputation is incinerated. Walt thought he was providing for her, but he left her in a prison of social isolation. Let us dig into the Easter eggs of the aftermath that fans went crazy over. In El Camino, when Jesse drives to Alaska, he gives the disappearer a letter to mail. It is addressed to Brock Cantillo. We never see what is in the letter. Aaron Paul revealed in interviews that Vince Gilligan wrote the letter, and it was an apology, a confession, a plea for forgiveness. But keeping it secret is more powerful. It represents the words that Walt could never say. Walt never apologized to the victims. Jesse does. That is the fundamental difference between the two protagonists. Walt died looking at his reflection in a metal tank, loving himself. Jesse drives into the snow, looking at the road, seeking redemption. The technical filmmaking of El Camino also deserves a mention in our educational journey. The aspect ratio is different. It is shot in widescreen, 2.39 to 1, unlike the 1.78 to 1 of the TV show. This gives it a cinematic, epic feel, emphasizing the vastness of the landscape and the loneliness of Jesse. The use of overhead shots, the God's eye view, returns. We see Jesse tearing apart Todd's apartment from above, looking like a rat in a maze. It calls back to the shot of Walt in the crawl space. They are both trapped in the mazes of their own making. The continuity details are insane. The scar on Jesse's face is exactly where it should be. The bullet holes in the El Camino match the finale. The production team rebuilt the vacuum cleaner store set from scratch. Because the original had been destroyed, they measured it down to the millimeter. This dedication to facts and visual consistency is why the Breaking Bad universe feels so real. It respects the audience's memory. We must also talk about the Heisenberg effect on the in-universe culture. In Better Call Saul flash forwards, which we will explore deeply next, we see Remember the Alamo graffiti, but we also feel the weight of the legend. People in Albuquerque would be talking about this for decades. The car wash would be a tourist attraction. The house, as it is in real life, would be bombarded by looky-loos. Walt wanted to be remembered. He got his wish, but in the worst way possible. He became a cautionary tale, a boogeyman to scare children. Study hard, or you'll end up like Walter White. The survival of Jesse Pinkman is the only win Walt truly achieved. Think about it. He failed to keep the family together. He failed to spend the money. He failed to conquer the drug trade permanently. The blue meth is gone. But he saved Jesse. In those final moments, tackling him to the ground, he chose a human life over his revenge. It was a flicker of the old Walt, the teacher who cared about the dropout. It doesn't wash away the sins, but it suggests that the monster wasn't 100% solid. There was a drop of humanity left, and that drop is driving a Toyota Land Cruiser through the snow in Alaska, starting a new life under the name Mr. Driscoll. But there is one person we haven't touched on enough: Lydia Rodart Quayle, the woman who supplied the methylamine. In the finale, Walt calls her. She is sick in bed. "How are you feeling?" he asks. "Under the weather," she says. "I slipped something into that stevia crap you're always drinking," he reveals. Ricin. Finally, the ricin is used. Lydia is a dead woman walking. Her death is significant because it represents the end of the corporate tie. The bureaucracy of the drug trade is severed. Walt didn't just kill the thugs. He killed the suits. He wiped the slate clean. It is a genius callback to the pilot. The Riken was the first weapon he made, and it was the last one he used. The circle is complete. As we conclude this chapter on the shadows and echoes, we have to acknowledge the silence. The show was known for its frantic tension, but the aftermath is quiet. It is the silence of a snow-covered landscape in Alaska. It is the silence of a dead phone line. The noise of Heisenberg has faded, leaving only the wreckage. But there is one more ghost we need to summon. A man who sat in a strip mall office with an inflatable Statue of Liberty. A man who knew the game better than anyone. Saul Goodman. While Jesse went north to find peace, Saul went to Nebraska to hide in purgatory. And in our next chapter, we are going to open the case file of the lawyer who made it all possible and see how Walter White's poison infected a timeline that started long before he ever put on a gas mask. The universe is about to expand backwards, and the tragedy will deepen even further. If the story of Walter White is a tragedy of hubris, the story of the man who enabled him is a tragedy of identity. We are now entering the 8th chapter of our saga, moving from the frozen tundras of Alaska to the grayscale monotony of a Cinnabon in Omaha, Nebraska. This is the purgatory of Saul Goodman, when Walt told Saul in the basement of the vacuum repair shop, "Best case scenario, I'm managing a Cinnabon in Omaha." It was a throwaway line, a bit of dark humor, but Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould, the absolute geniuses behind this universe, took that one sentence and built an entire psychological horror show around it. We meet Gene Takovich, a mustachioed, balding manager who is terrified of his own shadow. The cinematography here shifts to stark black and white. This is not just an artistic choice. It is a narrative one. In the world of Better Call Saul, Jimmy McGill's life was vibrant and colorful. When he became Saul Goodman, it was garish, loud, neon. But now the color is gone. The magic is gone. He is alive, unlike Walt, but he is a ghost. He mixes dough, frosts rolls, and eats his lunch in silence, constantly watching the door for the police. It is a suffocating existence that makes death look almost merciful by comparison. But to understand the end of Saul Goodman and how he intersects with the Heisenberg legend, we have to rewind. We have to go back to before the RV, before the blue meth, to a time when he was just Jimmy McGill, a hustler with a heart of gold and a brother who hated him. The relationship between Jimmy and Chuck McGill is the foundational trauma that eventually destroys Albuquerque. Chuck, played by the legendary Michael McKean, suffers from a psychosomatic allergy to electricity. He wraps himself in space blankets and lives in the dark. Jimmy takes care of him. He loves him. But Chuck looks down on Jimmy. Slippin' Jimmy with a law degree is like a chimp with a machine gun. That line, delivered with venomous precision, echoes through the entire series. It is the what if that haunts us. If Chuck had just supported Jimmy, if he had just let him work at the firm HHM, Saul Goodman would never have been born. Walter White would have been arrested in season 2 because he wouldn't have had a criminal lawyer to launder his money and connect him to Gus Fring. Chuck created the monster that eventually ate the world. The evolution of Jimmy into Saul is a slow-motion car crash that is insane to watch. We see him try to be good. He works in elder law. He calls out bingo numbers. He tries to play by the rules. But the universe and his brother keeps kicking him down. The moment that changes everything is the introduction of Kim Wexler. Rhea Seehorn's performance as Kim is arguably the best in the entire franchise, rivaling even Bryan Cranston. She is the love of Jimmy's life. She is brilliant, stoic, and complex. Fans spent years terrified for her, asking, where is Kim in Breaking Bad? Does she die? Does Walt kill her? The truth turned out to be far more heartbreaking. She didn't die. She broke bad with him, and then she realized they were toxic together. She left. The breakup scene in Better Call Saul is devastating. We are bad for everyone around us, she says. Apart we are okay, but together we are poison. When she walks out the door, Jimmy McGill dies. He dyes his hair, buys a devastatingly loud suit, and sits in that cathedral of an office with the inflatable Statue of Liberty. He becomes Saul Goodman 24/7 to mask the pain of losing her. He helps Walter White build an empire not because of greed, but because he has a hole in his soul that he is trying to fill with chaos. Let's talk about the Lalo Salamanca factor. In Breaking Bad, when Walt and Jesse kidnap Saul and drag him to the desert, Saul screams, "It wasn't me. It was Ignacio. Did Lalo send you?" For years, these were just throwaway names. But the prequel turned Lalo Salamanca, played by the charismatic Tony Dalton, into one of the most terrifying villains in TV history. He is the Joker to Gus Fring's Batman. He is charming, athletic, and completely psychotic. He jumps onto cars, crawls through ceilings, and smiles while he kills. The terror he instilled in Saul is visceral. There is an episode, Bagman, where Saul has to carry $7 million of cartel bail money through the desert. He gets ambushed. Mike saves him. They walk for days, drinking urine to survive, baking in the sun. This is the 4 days out of the Saul timeline. It explains why Saul is so hardened in Breaking Bad. He has seen the face of death. He has been in the game way deeper than Walt ever realized. When Walt walks into his office in Season 2 of Breaking Bad, he thinks he is the big bad wolf. He has no idea that the clown in the cheap suit has already survived a war between Gus and the Salamancas. Saul looks at Walt and sees an amateur, but a profitable one. The crossover episode, titled simply Breaking Bad, is a stroke of genius. We see the timeline merge. We see the RV scene from Saul's perspective, and we realize something shocking. Walt was unbearable from day one. In the RV, Walt is rude, arrogant, and dismissive. He refuses to listen. Jesse is asking stupid questions. Saul is the smartest guy in the room. He deduces who they are immediately. You're the guys who made the blue stuff. Back in the Gene timeline, we see Gene relapse. The boredom of Omaha breaks him. He starts running scams again. He befriends a sweet old lady named Marion, played by the icon Carol Burnett, just to manipulate her son. He is addicted to the slip. It is like watching an alcoholic take a drink after years of sobriety. But the darkness is deeper now. There is a scene where he almost strangles Marion with a telephone cord when she discovers his true identity using Jeeves. The look in his eyes is pure Heisenberg. He has crossed the line. He is ready to kill an innocent old woman to protect his secret. He stops at the last second, but the damage is done. He runs. The finale, Saul Gone, is a courtroom drama that flips the script on everything we expected. Saul is caught. He is in the dumpsters, filthy, diamonds spilling out of a Band-Aid tin. It is a pathetic end. The police have him. He faces life in prison plus 190 years. But then he does the Saul thing. He negotiates. He manipulates the system so brilliantly that he talks the sentence down to 7 years in a cushy federal wing where he can play golf. He is about to win. He's about to get away with it again. But then he hears that Kim has confessed to her part in the death of Howard Hamlin. Howard Hamlin. We have to pause for Howard. The Patrick Fabian character was the Hank of this series, the guy we thought was the antagonist, but was actually a decent man. Jimmy and Kim destroyed his life for fun. They framed him as a drug addict. And because of their games, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time when Lalo walked in. Lalo shoots Howard in the head just like that. Bam! A civilian casualty of their fun. They bury him in the super lab right under the floor, where Walt and Jesse would later cook meth for months. Every time you watch Breaking Bad now, and you see Walt walking around that lab, remember, Howard Hamlin's body is rotting beneath his feet. It is a mind-blowing connection that adds a layer of macabre horror to the original show. Back in the courtroom, Saul sees Kim. He realizes that if he takes the 7-year deal, he remains Saul Goodman, the man who gets away with everything, the man without a conscience. But if he confesses, he can clear her name and maybe, just maybe, earn back a shred of her respect. He walks to the podium. He tells the judge, "I am James McGill." He confesses to everything. He admits that Walter White couldn't have done it without him. Walter White couldn't have done it without me. He takes the blame. He throws away the 7-year deal and takes 86 years in a supermax prison. It is the exact opposite of what Walt did. Walt died claiming he won. Jimmy decides to lose so he can find himself again. It is a redemption arc that feels earned because he pays the ultimate price. His freedom, the final scene between Jimmy and Kim, is a masterpiece of silence. She visits him in prison. He is baking bread, a callback to the Cinnabon, but now he is doing it as a prisoner, finding peace in the routine. They share a cigarette, leaning against the wall, the smoke curling up in the one shaft of light. It mirrors the very first episode of the show where they shared a cigarette in the HHM parking garage. No words are spoken. The flame flickers, the only bit of color in the black and white world. It signifies that the spark of humanity is back. He is in prison for life, but he is free. He is Jimmy again. As she walks away, he does the finger guns gesture. It is sad, nostalgic, and perfect. But we also get a flashback with Walter White in the finale. We see them in the basement of the vacuum shop, waiting for their new identities. This is a missing scene from Breaking Bad Season 5. Walt is looking at the boiler, trying to fix it, because he can't stand something not working. Saul asks him, if you had a time machine, where would you go? Walt, being the scientist, scoffs. It violates the second law of thermodynamics. You're talking about regrets. Walt looks at his Tag Heuer Monaco watch, which Jesse gave him, and almost admits a regret about leaving gray matter, but then retreats into his ego. I have regrets, he says, but he doesn't truly share them. Saul, however, when asked, deflects with a story about a slip-and-fall scam. It highlights the tragedy. Neither of them could be honest, even at the end. But in the courtroom, Jimmy finally uses his time machine. He goes back and owns his mistakes. The connection between the two shows reveals a fascinating truth. Walter White was a bomb, but Saul Goodman was the fuse, and Mike Ehrmantraut was the casing that tried to hold it all together. The universe of Breaking Bad is a closed loop of cause and effect. The facts are interconnected in ways that are genius. For example, the tequila stopper from the bottle Gus used to kill the cartel. It shows up in the gutter in Better Call Saul. The frantic bell ringing of Hector Salamanca. We see the origin of his hatred for Gus, born from the manipulation of his nephew Nacho Varga. Nacho is another tragic figure, a Jesse Pinkman parallel who sacrificed himself to save his father. His death allowed Gus to secure his power, which allowed him to hire Walt. It is a domino effect of pain. So, as we leave Jimmy McGill in the ADX Montrose prison, staring at the concrete wall, we realize that the story of Walter White didn't end in the meth lab. It ended in a courtroom in Albuquerque years later, when the last remaining architect of the Heisenberg empire finally said, "Enough." The shadow of Heisenberg is long, but it is not infinite. The legacy is one of destruction, yes, but also of complex, deeply flawed human beings trying to navigate a world they broke. The chemistry is volatile, the law is malleable, but the consequences are absolute. We have covered the rise, the fall, the aftermath, and the origin. But there is one more layer to this onion. We need to talk about the fans, the theories, the cultural impact, the what-if scenarios that keep us up at night, the hidden details that you only see on the 10th rewatch. We are going to dive into the iceberg of Breaking Bad, the deepest, darkest, most obscure facts and connections that turn this show from a TV series into a modern mythology. We are going to talk about the colors, the numbers, and the secret language of Vince Gilligan. Prepare yourself. We are about to go microscopic. We are going to look at the atoms of the story. Welcome to the 9th level of our descent, where we stop looking at the plot and start looking at the DNA of the show. We are cracking open the microscope to examine the iceberg of Breaking Bad, the hidden layer of symbolism, color theory, and insane details that Vince Gilligan and his team hid in plain sight. If you thought the story was deep, the subtext is a bottomless ocean. Let's start with the most famous secret code in the series, color theory. You might have noticed that characters dress in specific colors, but did you know that the wardrobe department had a literal timeline of color for every single character that tracked their moral decay? It is mind-blowing. Let's look at Walter White. In the pilot, he wears beige, khaki, and pale greens. He is washed out. He is bland. He is invisible. But as he breaks bad, the green gets darker, richer. Green represents money, yes, but also greed and growth. Then, as he becomes Heisenberg, the black enters. The black pork pie hat, the black jacket. He becomes the absence of color. But here is the crazy detail. In the final season, when he is hiding in New Hampshire, he wears clothes that don't fit him, often borrowing the look of the people he is with. But in the finale, when he dies, he is wearing a simple shirt and trousers, returning to a neutral state, but bloodied. Now, look at Marie Schreider. She is the Purple Queen. She wears purple, drives a purple car, has a purple kitchen, and uses a purple tea kettle. Why? In color psychology, purple is often associated with royalty, nobility, and wisdom, but it can also represent deception and artificiality. Marie lives in a bubble of denial. She refuses to see the danger her husband is in, or the monster her brother-in-law is. She wraps herself in purple to feel safe, to feel superior. It is a security blanket. But notice when the purple disappears. When Hank is in the hospital, or when she finds out about Walt, she starts wearing black or dark blue. The illusion is shattered. The purple fades when the reality crashes in. It is a visual storytelling device that tells you her emotional state without a single line of dialogue. And then there is Skylar. She starts in blue. Blue is cool, calm, water. It is the opposite of Walt's volatile chemistry. But as she gets dragged into the business, her clothes get darker. She starts wearing grays and blacks, merging with the gray matter of the moral ambiguity. She literally absorbs the darkness of her husband. But the most chilling detail about Walter White isn't his color, it's his copycat trait. This is a theory that fans picked up on, and it is absolutely terrifying once you see it. Walt has a habit of adopting the traits of the people he kills. It is like he's a Highlander absorbing their power. Remember Crazy 8? He liked his sandwiches with the crusts cut off. After Walt kills him, we see Walt cutting the crusts off his own sandwiches for the rest of the series. He never did that before. Remember Mike? Mike enjoyed his whiskey on the rocks. After Walt kills Mike, we see Walt ordering whiskey on the rocks. Remember Gus Fring? Gus drove a humble but safe Volvo. In the final season, Walt drives a Volvo. Gus also had a very specific way of kneeling on a towel to vomit, in the flashback. In Better Call Saul and later Breaking Bad moments, we see Walt adopt similar meticulous physical behaviors. It suggests that Walter White is a void. He has no true self. He constructs Heisenberg out of the pieces of the men he murdered. He is a psychological cannibal. It is a detail that makes him infinitely more monstrous than just a drug dealer. Let's talk about the numbers. The show is obsessed with them. The number 62 is critical. There are exactly 62 episodes in Breaking Bad. On the periodic table of elements, the 62nd element is samarium. What is samarium used for? It is used in the drug quadramet, which kills cancer cells in lung cancer patients. The show literally begins and ends with the chemistry of cancer. That level of planning is genius. It suggests that the entire series is the treatment, the purging of the cancer that was Walter White's ego, or take the lottery ticket. The numbers Walt buys, N34, 59, 20, W106, 36, 52, are the GPS coordinates to the buried money. But in real life, if you plug those coordinates into Google Maps, they don't lead to the Tohajile Reservation. They lead to Q Studios in Albuquerque, specifically the soundstage where Breaking Bad was filmed. The money was hidden on the set the whole time. It is a meta joke for the superfans who bothered to check. The cinematography also uses a unique language that we call the POV of inanimate objects. We have seen shots from inside a toilet bowl, from inside a Roomba vacuum cleaner, from the bottom of a shovel looking up at the digger, from inside a chemical vat. This Breaking Bad cam does something psychologically interesting. It creates a sense of detachment. We are watching these horrors from the perspective of the world itself. The world is indifferent to Walt's suffering. The shovel doesn't care who it is burying. The toilet doesn't care who is vomiting in it. It emphasizes the gritty, grounded reality of the show. It grounds the epic events in the mundane dirt of existence. And, speaking of epic shots, let's talk about the pizza. The pizza on the roof scene in Season 3 is legendary. Walt brings a dipping sticks pizza to make peace with Skylar. She refuses. In a fit of rage, he throws the box. The pizza flies out of the box and lands perfectly, unsliced, on the roof of the garage. Fans thought this was CGI, or that it took 100 takes. Nope. Bryan Cranston did it in one take. It was a miracle of physics. He didn't even look back at it. The reaction you see on his face, that slight double take, is Bryan Cranston genuinely surprised that it landed there, but staying in character. It became such an iconic moment that real-life fans started throwing pizzas on the roof of the real house in Albuquerque, forcing the owners to put up a massive fence. Please, do not throw pizza on people's houses. It is rude. The what-if scenarios of the show are a labyrinth of tragedy. The biggest one, the one that haunts every viewer, is the gray matter offer in Season 1. If Walt had just swallowed his pride and taken the job from Elliot, the entire series would not have happened. He would have had health insurance. He would have lived. But he would have been miserable. The show posits a dark philosophical question. Is a short, violent, exciting life better than a long, boring, emasculated one? Walt answers yes. Another massive what if is the firearm in the pilot. When Walt tries to shoot himself, the safety is on. If the safety was off, he dies in Episode 1. The show is a series of coin flips, where the coin landed on its edge. What if Jane didn't roll over? What if Hank didn't have to use the bathroom? The butterfly effect is the engine of the plot. A single broken plate leads to a strangled drug dealer. A single coincidence at a bar with Jane's dad leads to a plane crash. It shows how interconnected we all are, and how one man's toxicity can poison a whole city. Let's dig into the name Heisenberg. Why did Walt choose that name? Werner Heisenberg was a German physicist famous for the uncertainty principle. Simply put, the principle states that you cannot know both the position and the momentum of a particle at the same time with perfect accuracy. The more you know one, the less you know the other. This is the perfect metaphor for Walt. The more we understand his momentum, his rise to power, the less we understand his position, his morality. Is he a father? Is he a monster? He is both and neither, depending on when you look at him. He exists in a state of quantum superposition until the wave function collapses in the finale. Also, the chemical symbol for the show, Br, bromine, and Ba, barium, is significant. Bromine is a fire retardant, Walt putting out fires, but also toxic. Barium is often used in medical imaging, enemas to see blockages. It is a show about toxicity and seeing the rot inside. There is also the Reservoir Dogs connection. Vince Gilligan is a huge fan of Quentin Tarantino. In Reservoir Dogs, the characters are named Mr. White, Mr. Orange, Mr. Pink, etc. In Breaking Bad, we have Mr. White and Jesse Pinkman. We have the orange theory. Whenever oranges appear in the show, death or danger follows, a nod to The Godfather. Ted Beneke trips and breaks his neck after seeing oranges. Carol, the neighbor, drops a bag of oranges when she sees Walt return in the finale. It is a cinematic language that rewards the film geeks. And let's not forget the Baby Blue song theory. The final song, Baby Blue by Badfinger, starts with the line, "Guess I got what I deserved." It fits perfectly. But did you know the band Badfinger has a tragic history of suicide and financial ruin? It mirrors the show's themes of talent being exploited and destroyed by greed. The iceberg goes even deeper into the scientific accuracy. The show employed a chemistry advisor, Dr. Donna Nelson from the University of Oklahoma. She ensured the formulas were real, mostly. However, the blue meth is actually scientifically impossible. Pure methamphetamine is white or clear. If it is blue, it is contaminated. The show explains this away by saying it is a result of the methylamine process, but in reality, blue meth would be bad product. Ironically, after the show aired, real drug dealers started dyeing their meth blue to brand it as Heisenberg quality. The fiction influenced the reality. It is a crazy example of life imitating art. Also, the method of dissolving bodies in hydrofluoric acid. While terrifying, Mythbusters proved that it wouldn't eat through a bathtub and a floor that quickly. But we forgive the exaggeration because the visual of the falling bathtub is just too good. We also have to talk about the Fly episode again. Many people skipped it or called it boring, but on the iceberg, it is the peak of psychological storytelling. The Fly represents the contamination in the lab, yes, but it specifically lands on things associated with guilt. It buzzes around Walt. He falls off the catwalk trying to kill it. It represents the rot he speaks about in the episode. There is no more room for error. It is all contaminated. He isn't talking about the meth. He is talking about his soul. He knows he let Jane die. He knows he is poisoning Jesse. The Fly is his conscience, a pest he is trying to swat away so he can get back to work. At the end of the episode, the Fly lands on the blinking light of the smoke detector in his bedroom. It is still there. He never killed it. He just learned to live with the buzzing. Another fascinating layer is the Western genre subversion. Breaking Bad is a modern Western. The car is the horse. The meth is the gold. The hat is, well, the hat. But look at the shootouts. They are rarely cool in the traditional sense. The shootout with Tuco is messy and desperate. The shootout with the cousins is terrifying and quick. The final shootout is done by a robot. The show deconstructs the violence. In a classic Western, the hero wins the duel because he is faster. In Breaking Bad, the hero wins because he cheats. He uses science, he uses bombs, he uses poisons. Walt is the anti-John Wayne. He is the coward who wins. This revisionist take on the genre is what makes it feel so fresh even years later. Let's touch on the Easter eggs connecting to other media. When Walt rolls the barrel in the desert in Ozymandias, he passes a pair of pants. These are the same pants he lost in the pilot episode. They had been lying there in the desert for 2 years in Showtime. It is a symbol of how far he has traveled, literally and metaphorically, only to end up back in the dirt, or the fact that the coordinates on the lottery ticket are not just Q Studios, but specifically the stage where the Super Lab set was built. He was leading Skylar to the place where he lost his soul. And consider the Heisenberg song, Negro Azul, the Ballad of Heisenberg. It is a Narciso corrido, a drug ballad, sung by a fictional band in Season 2. The lyrics predict the ending. That homie's dead, he just doesn't know it yet. The culture of the show is self-referential. It knows it is a tragedy. As we wrap up this deep dive, remember that an iceberg is 90% underwater. We could talk about the symbolism of the swimming pool, a recurring motif of chaos entering the domestic sphere, the use of mirrors and reflections, fractured identity, or the significance of breakfast, the breakdown of the family unit, usually shown over eggs. The show is a dense text that demands to be studied. It is a masterpiece of construction where nothing is accidental. Every prop Every color, every song is a brick in the wall of the narrative. So, shake your head to clear the dizziness from all these mind-blowing facts. We have analyzed the atoms, the electrons, and the chemical bonds of the show. But we have one final chapter left. We need to step back and look at the whole picture. We need to talk about the legacy. How did Breaking Bad change television forever? Why do we still care about a bald chemistry teacher 10 years later? And what is the final lesson of the empire business? The reaction is almost complete. The product is 99.1% pure. Let's finish the cook. We have arrived at the end of the line. The final reaction, the 10th and final chapter of our exhaustive journey through the Breaking Bad universe. We have watched the pants fly, the bell ring, the plane crash, the bomb explode, and the machine gun fire. We have analyzed the colors, the numbers, and the hidden details. But now, we have to ask the biggest question of all. Why does this show matter? Why, nearly 2 decades after it premiered, are we still talking about it with such reverence? Why do people still pilgrimage to Albuquerque to throw pizzas on roofs and buy bags of Blue Rock candy? The answer lies in the legacy. Breaking Bad did not just tell a story. It changed the very DNA of television. Before Walter White, television was largely episodic. You had your procedural dramas, your sitcoms, shows where the status quo was king. Characters might change a little, but they mostly stayed in their lanes. Breaking Bad promised something different. Vince Gilligan pitched it with one line: "I want to take Mr. Chips and turn him into Scarface." It was a promise of transformation, and in fulfilling that promise, it proved that television could be a novel, it could be cinema, it could be art. The golden age of television is a term thrown around a lot, usually referencing The Sopranos, The Wire, and Mad Men. But Breaking Bad was the closer. It was the show that bridged the gap between the cable era and the streaming era. Think about the binge-watching phenomenon. When Breaking Bad started, the ratings were low. It was a cult hit on AMC, but then it hit Netflix. People started catching up. They told their friends, "You have to watch this insane show about the meth teacher." By the time the final season aired, it was a global event. The finale was watched by over 10 million people live. It created the modern model of TV consumption. It proved that if you respect your audience, if you write a complex, serialized mystery with no filler, people will obsess over it. It killed the guilty pleasure TV concept and replaced it with prestige TV. But the legacy goes deeper than industry mechanics. It is about the anti-hero. We had Tony Soprano, the mob boss in therapy. We had Don Draper, the ad man with a secret past. But Walter White was different. He was us. He was a middle-class father, overqualified, underpaid, worried about health care, worried about his legacy. He started as the ultimate underdog. We rooted for him because we felt his frustration. When he blew up Tuco's office, we cheered. When he told Skyler, "I am the one who knocks," we felt a thrill. But then the show did something brilliant and cruel. It kept pushing. It kept making him darker. It dared us to keep rooting for him. And we did. We made excuses for him. He had to kill Jane to save Jesse. He had to poison Brock to kill Gus. Until suddenly we looked in the mirror and realized we were rooting for a monster. The show made the audience complicit in the crimes. It forced us to examine our own morality. At what point does doing it for your family become a lie? At what point does the pursuit of power become evil? The show held a mirror up to the American ethos of success at any cost, and showed us the rotting reflection. Let's talk about the technical perfection. The cinematography of Breaking Bad is a character in itself. The wide desert shots, capturing the vast and different beauty of New Mexico, the time-lapse sequences of clouds rolling over the Sandia Mountains, the use of natural light. Michael Slovis, the cinematographer, painted with light and shadow in a way that had never been done on TV. It looked like a Western film from the 1970s. And the editing, the cold opens, are legendary. The show would start with a music video, or a flashback, or a flash forward, or a POV shot from a Roomba, completely disconnected from the previous cliffhanger. It demanded patience. It trained the audience to pay attention to visual cues. It respected our intelligence. We learned to trust that if we saw a pink teddy bear in episode 1, it would matter in episode 13. This trust is rare. How many shows have you watched that set up mysteries they never solve? Breaking Bad solved everything. It was a Swiss watch of a narrative. Every gear turned another gear. We must also acknowledge the performances. Bryan Cranston winning 4 Emmys was not a fluke. His physical transformation from the soft, doughy teacher to the scarred, bearded Scarface is one of the greatest acting feats ever captured. You can see the weight of the lies in his posture. You can see the cancer in his eyes. And Aaron Paul? He was the heart. He cried, he bled, he screamed, "Bitch!" And he made us love a drug dealer. The chemistry between them was the special sauce. They were father and son, master and apprentice, abuser and victim. Their relationship is the spine of the show, and the supporting cast: Anna Gunn, Dean Norris, Betsy Brandt, Bob Odenkirk, Giancarlo Esposito, Jonathan Banks. There was not a single weak link. It was an ensemble firing on all cylinders. The universe expanded, and instead of diluting the legacy, it strengthened it. Better Call Saul took the comic relief lawyer and turned him into a tragic figure of Shakespearean proportions. It deepened the lore. It showed us the construction of the super lab. It showed us the backstory of the Salamancas. It proved that this creative team was not a one-hit wonder. They were masters of their craft. El Camino gave us the emotional release for Jesse that we needed. Together, the 3 projects form a trilogy of crime that stands as a singular, cohesive masterpiece. It is a universe that feels lived in, complete, and terrifyingly real. But what is the final lesson? What do we take away when the screen goes black? It is a lesson about change. In the pilot, Walt stands in front of his class and defines chemistry. Technically, chemistry is the study of matter, but I prefer to see it as the study of change. Electrons change their energy levels. Molecules change their bonds. Elements combine and change into compounds. But that's all of life, right? It's the constant. It's the cycle. It's solution, dissolution, just over and over and over. It is growth, then decay, then transformation. This is the thesis statement of the entire show. Walt changed. He transformed. He catalyzed a reaction that changed everyone around him. Skylar changed from a housewife to a money launderer. Hank changed from a jock to a tragic hero. Jesse changed from a punk to a broken soul. The show asks us, do we really know who we are? Or are we just one bad day, one diagnosis, one desperate choice away from becoming someone else? There is also a profound commentary on the sunk cost fallacy. Walt kept going because he had already lost so much. He felt he had to make it worth it. He couldn't stop at 5 million or 10 million. He needed to justify the bodies. I am in the empire business. It is a warning about pride. Pride is the sin that kills Walter White. Not cancer. Not the cartel. Pride. He could have taken the money from Gretchen and Elliot. He could have stopped after Fring died, but he needed to be the king. He needed to be the man. It is a deconstruction of toxic masculinity before that term was even mainstream. It shows the destructiveness of a man who feels the world owes him something. The cultural impact is also seen in how it changed Albuquerque. The city embraced the show. There are statues of Walt and Jesse in the convention center, which caused some controversy naturally. The locations, the car wash, the doghouse, the laundry, are landmarks. The show captured the unique texture of the American Southwest. The turquoise skies, the stucco walls, the vast emptiness. It made the setting a character. It showed that you don't need New York or Los Angeles to tell a global story. You just need a good script and a camera. And let's not forget the humor. For all its darkness, Breaking Bad was hilarious. A robot. Cowhouse. Tight, tight, tight. The dark comedy was the spoonful of sugar that helped the medicine go down. It reminded us that even in the darkest situations, humans are absurd. We trip over rugs. We get stuck in the desert with dead batteries. We throw pizzas on roofs. The show balanced the horror with the absurdity of life perfectly. As we stand here at the end, looking back at the wreckage of the Wayfarer 515, the ruins of the super lab, and the money buried in the desert, we feel a sense of exhaustion and awe. We went on a ride, a crazy, insane, mind-blowing ride. We watched a man dissolve his life in acid, and we learned something about ourselves along the way. We learned that every action has a reaction. We learned that secrets are like rot. They eat the foundation until the house collapses. And we learned that no matter how smart you are, no matter how much money you have, you cannot outrun who you really are. Imagine the final shot one last time. The camera rising above Walt, the police swarming in, the music swelling. Baby blue. The blue meth is gone, replaced by the blue police uniforms. The chaos is being ordered. The experiment is over. The Bunsen burner is off. But the fumes will linger in our minds forever. Walter White is dead. Long live Heisenberg. Thank you for taking this journey with me. It has been a wild ride through the chemistry of the human soul. Now, go outside. Take a deep breath of fresh air. And maybe, just maybe, stay away from the RVs.